Marvel. Power Mod Master. Chapter 1. In New York's Chinatown, a vintage two-story building with a small courtyard stood next to an antique shop. In a bedroom on the second floor, next to a shelf lined with various palm-sized statues, a figure was wielding a charcoal pencil against an easel. The figure looked very young, perhaps 15 or 16 years old, about 1.7 meters tall, with a well-proportioned build, wearing a loose black and white tracksuit. His long black shoulder-length hair was tied into a simple ponytail with a hair tie. His eyes were a deep blue, and his facial contours possessed both the striking features of a Westerner and the softness of an Easterner. He had a high nose bridge and full lips, clearly the handsome face of a successful mixed-race individual. As the view zoomed in, the boy could be seen concentrating on drawing a blocky world. The land and trees were made of blocks, the cattle, sheep, and horses were blocky, and there was even a blocky person. As everyone must have realized, this was precisely Minecraft. Turning the gaze to the shelf nearby, the statues were either clad in cool, multicolored armor or wearing individualized attire. Majestic, mysterious, powerful, and ferocious, they were full of wild imagination, a boy's absolute favorite. Li Ji's hand moved continuously, meticulously sketching a corner of the blocky world onto the paper. His eyes seemed focused, following the charcoal pencil, but in reality, his mind was wandering. As the charcoal pencil moved, Li Ji's memories gradually returned to 16 years ago. Back then, he was a slacker who followed a cycle of job hunting, working, clocking out, quitting, lying flat, and then starting the job hunt all over again after a while. His usual free time was spent reading novels and watching videos. He had no goals, no motivation, no girlfriend, just a marginalized person in society. On this day, another weekend, Li Jie was lying in bed reading novels, flipping through various titles. He only felt his heart growing more irritable the more he browsed. There was nothing worth reading. The content was repetitive, the plots were nonsensical, making his temples throb. He came across another Marvel Universe transmigration novel, read the synopsis, and then quickly skimmed a few chapters with catchy titles. The protagonist, who transmigrated and became a mutant, developed superpowers step by step with the help of a cheat system, absorbing and replicating the superpowers of other mutants, slowly grinding levels in the Marvel Universe. A standard, formulaic story, similar to countless other novels he had read. Couldn't someone design a slightly subversive mutant protagonist to overturn the Marvel Universe? This ruined his mood for reading any other novels. Li Jie flipped out of bed and walked toward the balcony with his phone, ready to catch some breeze. He looked up and saw, hey! A patch of dark clouds was gathering overhead, faintly flickering with electric light, and the wind was picking up. Li Jie was about to return to his room when he inadvertently saw something beneath the thunderclouds. This piqued his curiosity. He opened the camera on his phone, zoomed the view to maximum, and aimed the lens at the thunderclouds. Li Jie pressed his eye to the screen, and his pupils immediately constricted in shock. What did he see? A person wearing a Taoist robe. He wasn't sure, so he looked again. Those wide, flowing sleeves, the faint circular black and white yin-yang fish visible on the back, the hair coiled into a topknot, there was no mistake. This standard attire of an enlightened master meant, could someone be undergoing tribulation transcendence in this age of science? Li Ji's throat felt dry, but his eyes were glued to the Taoist on his phone screen. His heart hammered like a drum. Nothing was more exhilarating than discovering something extraordinary in this ordinary world. The clouds above grew darker, electric snakes danced wildly, and the Taoist's figure, bathed in the electric light, seemed small and fragile, yet remained standing firm. Suddenly, a bolt of black-purple lightning condensed and shot through the dark clouds, and a thin strand of electric snake branched off from it, flying directly toward Li Jie. Before Li Jie could react, he felt a numbness on his head and his body tensed up. A pitch-black fissure flashed before his eyes, a thought of his dissatisfaction with Marvel novels crossed his mind, and he slowly sank into darkness. In the distant thunderclouds, the Taoist was also stunned. He swept his divine sense, performed a quick calculation, and instantly understood the cause and effect. Good lad. I don't know if this is fortune or misfortune for you, to be able to notice my ascension tribulation unaffected by my spiritual influence. In this era of Dharma decline, the great Tao is hidden. How can I allow a mortal like you to glimpse heavenly might? If I hadn't accumulated and slept for 1,000 years, I wouldn't dare to defy the heavens and seek eternal life in this era of Dharma decline. Fortunately, the Great Tao has 50, heavenly evolution uses 49, and one is escaped by man. The spatial temporal power contained within this violet heaven divine lightning should send your soul into the fictional derivative world that left the deepest impression on you before death. After the baptism of the violet heaven divine lightning, your talent in the next life is destined to be extraordinary. The principle that fortune and misfortune rely on each other is indeed profound. My final heavenly tribulation should be arriving now. Come. 1,000 years of arduous waiting, all for this moment. Here I come. Ha 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 ha. After the Taoist finished speaking, his figure soared into the sky, heading straight into the thunderclouds. As for Li Jie, when he regained consciousness, he was already a 16-year-old Sino-US mixed-race youth. 16 years of memories made him understand the current situation. He had transmigrated, arriving in the Marvel universe he had been dissatisfied with in fan fiction. Speaking of which, being able to break the veil of amnesia and awaken his past life memories was entirely an accident. A week ago, Li Jie unexpectedly witnessed the process of a mutant awakening their ability on the street. That unlucky fellow, stimulated by his girlfriend's infidelity, experienced violent emotional fluctuations, and his ability immediately went out of control upon awakening. He transformed into a scaly monster and directly pushed his girlfriend under the wheels of a speeding semi-truck, leaving blood splattered all over the ground instantly. When this scene, mixing terror, gore, and the surreal, entered his vision, Li Jie's mind buzzed, like a computer being connected to power, and his memories of his past life instantly flooded his mind. Amidst the throbbing pain in his brain from the memory fusion, the word mutant suddenly popped out of Li Jie's mind. There was no time to think. Amidst the panicked screams of the crowd, the shouts of the patrol officers, and the agitated and frantic explanations of that unlucky fellow, Li Jie quickly rushed out of the area. After returning home, Li Jie's father, Li Chuang, and mother, Alice Li, had already seen everything from the live news footage shot by reckless reporters. They had also spotted him in the footage. They unanimously attributed Li Jie's strange reactions, caused by memory fusion, to the mental trauma resulting from suddenly encountering the horrific incident caused by the mutant awakening. Considering Li Jie's mental state, they applied to the school for a week-long vacation, allowing him to rest well at home and adjust his mood. During these days at home, Li Jie quietly digested the memories of this life. Perhaps because he was struck by the purple heaven divine lightning, Li Jie in this life was a true genius. Not only did he possess unparalleled talent in fields such as electronic machinery, biochemistry, and physics, but he also used his spare time to elevate his abilities in sculpture and painting to a professional level. For some reason, Li Jie, since childhood in this life, had an extraordinary interest in the artistic fields that are always intertwined with imagination and creativity. However, he obviously couldn't try every art form and raise it to a certain level. So, in the end, he chose painting and sculpture, two common art forms that greatly require imagination and creativity. Of course, this also had to do with his greatest interest in these two art forms. In the past decade or so, this hobby might have been a very ordinary thing, others would at most praise his extraordinary talent in this area. But ever since he witnessed the awakening process of that mutant last time, and was stimulated by it to break through the mystery in the womb, Li Jie gradually discovered that some wonderful changes were happening within him. Throughout this week, Li Jie vaguely felt that whenever he was painting or sculpting, he always had a feeling of not being satisfied. It was as if a river, flowing forward, was about to merge into a deep and mysterious sea, when suddenly that boundless sea vanished without a trace. Li Jie clearly noticed this feeling the first time it occurred. He suddenly remembered his complaints before his rebirth, hoping for a subversive mutant protagonist to overturn the Marvel universe. He immediately had a wonderful idea: his complaints might have come true for himself. But thinking about it carefully, this is also very normal. How can transmigrators these days survive in the myriad worlds without some special skills? Moreover, I wasn't transmigrated by a truck, but rather by tribulation lightning while observing a tribulation. My special skills will definitely be both great and perfect. So, when Li Jie noticed this change in himself, and then thought of the simple and unadorned logic of mutants awakening when stimulated, and then factored in the stimulation he received to break through the mystery in the womb, there was nothing more to say. He should have awakened his mutant ability. In order to deeply understand this ability, which had no movement during its awakening and showed no mutations or uncontrollable phenomena in his body, Li Jie continuously tried to grasp the specific manifestation of his ability through painting and sculpting over this past week. The additional sculptures on the shelf and some paintings in the drawer were what he left behind during his attempts. It proved that his idea was not wrong. Although he never truly manifested his ability, he had grasped its form of expression. Li Jie had fully understood the core of his ability, design. It could be an ethereal ability or specific objects. But that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that his design ability could be used by other people. Surely no one doesn't know what this means, right? This means infinite possibilities. When Li Jie truly confirmed the specific function of his ability, after a moment of wild joy and then calm, he made up his mind. He was determined to become this subversive mutant who could overturn the Marvel Universe. Li Jie had fully realized that his ability destined him for an extraordinary future. Moreover, the plight of mutants meant that he couldn't remain aloof. And if he wanted to change the current situation of mutants and live freely and unrestrained in this Marvel world, where superheroes and supervillains emerge endlessly, and various technologies, magic, superpowers, mutations, and gods are mixed into a messy stew, he must fully utilize his abilities. Before overturning the world, Li Jie needed to quickly provide ample assurance for his personal safety. After confirming the specific function of his ability, he had been thinking about what kind of ability he should design for himself first. It's not that he didn't want to design all sorts of powerful abilities from various films, anime, and novels of his previous life and put them on himself. It's just that while his design ability has infinite possibilities, there's still a small problem: each design requires energy to activate it. And right now, Li Jie clearly has no energy, he only has his physical and mental energy. He is currently just a mortal body. Even if his soul is naturally strong due to his rebirth, leading to strong mental energy, he cannot immediately design a very powerful ability. The question Li Jie is currently pondering is what kind of ability he should design first that can both ensure his safety, allow him to counterattack in emergencies, and most importantly, solve his energy shortage problem. In fact, Li Jie had already thought about what kind of design he truly wanted when he first confirmed his ability. He thought of it while painting. As a lying flat enthusiast, he doesn't need incredibly powerful abilities unless absolutely necessary. What does he need? Self-preservation, a place where outsiders or the world cannot affect him, a self-sufficient place suitable for lying flat. Then the answer is already clear. The memories of his previous life have automatically sent the answer to his brain. That's right. What could be better than Minecraft? An independent world, where rules and players are fully integrated and interdependent, with perfect logistics, infinite possibilities, a data-driven body, a perfect choice. Aren't there many dimensional demon gods in the Marvel Universe? What difference does one more demon god like me make? However, I don't need to completely replicate Minecraft. My ability is design, not replication. I can design this dimension to be anything I want. Minecraft is just a reference template. Reality has now told Li Jie that he cannot instantly design himself to be a dimensional demon god with a dimension. Even the most beautiful future requires a basic ability sufficient to get through the weak early stages, and he already has a clear answer for this foundation today. In the Marvel Universe, what ability can both attack and defend, and also absorb energy? Most people's deepest impression must be the energy absorption of Black King Sebastian Shaw among the mutants. He can absorb various energies including electrical, thermal, kinetic, and nuclear energy, and can also attack by releasing energy or directly strengthening his body with energy, and can even use energy to ensure his immortality. This ability perfectly met Li Jie's needs. However, there's always a but in everything. The Black King's ability cannot defend against mental attacks. This is not a small problem. Throughout various fantasy works, countless powerful individuals have fallen due to enemies' mental abilities. Thinking from another perspective, mental energy is also a type of energy. If it cannot be absorbed, it's not only a flaw in the ability but also a waste of energy. Moreover, ancient myths tell us that a truly powerful god will not have any obvious weaknesses. Only comprehensive development can allow one to calmly deal with any situation. The Black King's personal experience has fully proven that once his ability encounters someone with strong mental abilities like Professor X, even if he has absorbed the energy of a nuclear bomb and unleashed incredibly powerful attacks, he can only be obediently controlled and die as if the plot demands it. Learn from the mistakes of others. With the Black King as an example, Li Jie could never simply copy his ability exactly as it was. Furthermore, Li Jie's ability is about design. How could he be a plagiarist? He must have his own ideas. There are so many other fantasy worlds and so many abilities, he couldn't possibly remember all the details of those abilities completely. Will he have to struggle to recall those vague memories whenever he needs to design something in the future? Therefore, the information about abilities or treasures from those fantasy worlds in his previous life's memory can only serve as a vast material library, providing him with inspiration for his designs. So, how should he now modify the Black King's ability to suit his needs? First, the indispensable mental energy absorption, which has just been fully considered. Next is the time to unleash his imagination and creativity. The Black King's energy absorption did not permanently strengthen his body. This can be seen from the fact that after he was mentally controlled by Professor X, he could not actively activate his ability, and his originally indestructible body was easily breached by Magneto with a coin. Li Jie cannot accept this, so it must be changed. He will change it so that the absorbed energy can slowly and permanently strengthen his body, and gradually allow his soul to keep up with the body's strength, thereby achieving the goal of dual cultivation of body and soul. And thinking of dual cultivation of body and soul, one inevitably thinks of the upper, middle, and lower dantians in the immortal cultivation system. So, should he also design a space within his body, like a dantian, to store energy, or directly design it within his soul? All of his skills, he can be sure, will be designed by him in the future. His foundation is the ability to design. Although his design ability was awakened by the mutant X gene, he always felt it was attached to his soul. Even if it wasn't, he would design it to be so. In the Marvel universe, mutant genes are too easily targeted. For example, the mutant Jimmy can nullify mutant X genes, and after that, some even developed genetically modified food specifically targeting mutant X genes. Li Jie will definitely not allow such an obvious weakness to exist, regardless of whether he will be affected by these things. Therefore, to solve the problem once and for all, binding the design ability directly to his soul is an excellent idea. This also eliminates the possibility of anyone trying to conspire for his abilities by collecting his body tissues that might accidentally be left outside. They will only find that he has the X gene, but his X gene cannot be utilized. And doesn't the practice of storing the source of power in the soul sound a bit familiar to anyone? That's right. It's the divinity of Western gods. Now in this world, doing this can be considered adapting to local customs. However, this means the order of strengthening the body and soul will have to change. It can only be to strengthen the soul first and then the body. But this won't matter, as under dual cultivation of body and soul, both are strengthened synchronously. He only needs to design this divinity, let it slowly absorb energy and grow within his soul, and open up a space within it that grows continuously. However, this cannot be considered the end. As mentioned before, Li Jie's true goal is to design a Minecraft and become a new dimensional demon god, of course, a modified version of Minecraft. Therefore, this divinity, modified from the Black King's energy absorption, must also serve this goal, and a world undoubtedly needs many things. First is matter. This is easy to say. In the beginning, he can collect some soil and water from uninhabited areas to fill the divinity space. Later, if conditions permit, he can go into the vast universe to collect ownerless meteorites or stars. If all else fails, he can also use energy to manifest reality from illusion. Next are the world rules. This needs careful design, but with Minecraft as a reference, he only needs to slowly engrave the desired rules into the divinity space over time. Then there is information about various things. For example, the information of various things. The previous life's Minecraft was a virtual world, so there was no need to consider actual situations, but now in a real world, it certainly cannot be careless. So he needs the divinity to be able to scan and record the information of what he wants. Finally, to summarize, what he needs to design is a divinity based on the Black King's energy absorption, capable of absorbing mental energy, able to permanently strengthen both body and soul, and possessing a growing space that can collect matter, engrave rules, and scan and record information. Looking at it this way, isn't this a super weakened version of a creator divinity? But it doesn't matter, as he currently has no energy anyway. Even if he designs this divinity, he won't be able to fully utilize its abilities immediately. Collecting energy, engraving rules, and scanning and recording information all require time to do slowly. Li Ji's hand had left the drawing paper. Looking at the block world on it, his thoughts were incredibly clear. He didn't like the rhombus-shaped polyhedral divinity. Instead, he preferred the perfectly round, simple, and clear spherical shape. As a quasi-dimensional demon god with design capabilities, he naturally had to design a divinity he liked. Feeling the energy in his body, as expected, there was only as much reserve as a healthy normal person. It seems he can only design and materialize the most basic energy absorption ability for now. He can't immediately make the ability strong enough. As for the divinity, he could only materialize a virtual one first, and then gradually fill it with energy accumulated through the energy absorption ability. Li Jie turned his head to glance at the electronic clock on the wall. It was already around 5 in the afternoon, and his parents would be home from work after 6. It seemed he needed to hurry. Li Jie got up and went to the window, looking out at the street. The antique shop next door was still deserted, with only a shadow walking at the intersection not far away. He pulled the curtains shut and turned back to his drawing spot. Sitting in the chair, Li Jie felt a surge of excitement. This was the foundation of his power, the starting point for transcending the mundane and entering sainthood. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. He took several deep breaths, finally calming his mind. Li Jie focused his attention between his hands. Although he could directly imagine, design, and materialize it in his mind, it was his first time activating the ability, so holding it between his hands was more intuitive and helped him concentrate better. Moreover, since he had already decided to become a subversive mutant, if he wanted to subvert the world, he would inevitably have to spread the abilities or treasures he designed. He couldn't possibly design and materialize them on the spot every time, could he? So Li Jie thought of a method. If it was a designed ability, it could be designed as an ability seed and then attached to an item. If it was a designed treasure, it could also be sealed within an item. This way, he could carry it with him and take it out directly whenever he needed to give it to someone. It would be best to add an activation method to these items, for example, blood recognition. After these steps, Li Jie could directly become a mobile, world-stirring, grandpa, or golden finger. Coincidentally, Li Jie's attainments in sculpture and painting were not shallow, which came in handy. However, sculpture was still a bit troublesome. Each time he had to sculpt, and even the simplest sculpture would take a lot of time. Could he just use raw stones or logs? Wouldn't that lower his style? As for paintings, they still took up a lot of space. Would he have to learn from ninjas and carry a large number of scrolls? Childhood memories from his previous life unconsciously surfaced. Li Jie at that time loved collecting all kinds of exquisite cards. Beautiful pictures were drawn on the small cards, and introductions were written in the frame below, making people want to collect them as soon as they saw them. Didn't this perfectly meet his requirements? He could carry a large number of them, they were convenient to use, and exquisite cards could also display his style. Now Li Jie was designing abilities for himself, so he didn't need to spend time making cards, but practicing the design and materialization of ability seeds beforehand was also good. As Li Jie focused his attention between his hands, his design ability also activated. The energy stored in his body slowly moved between his hands, condensing into a ball. A colorful, longan-sized orb of light gradually appeared between his hands. Under Li Jie's mental control, the orb of light slowly transformed into a transparent, crystal-like texture, appearing smooth, flawless, and emitting colorful radiance. Li Jie then exerted more effort, and a square block appeared in the center of the orb. The grass green on top of the block was very noticeable. It was indeed the grass block from Minecraft. Although Li Jie would not copy Minecraft verbatim, the grass block symbol could still be kept as a memento. Most of Li Jie's mental focus was on the grass block. This block was the external visualization of Li Jie's future dimension, and also the condensed state of the various rules Li Jie would engrave. Slightly closing his eyes, Li Jie mentally engraved his various designs one by one into this divinity. Physical energy absorption, mental energy absorption, permanent soul and body enhancement, material collection, rule engraving, information scanning and recording. As his thoughts engraved them, the grass block within the divinity appeared clearer and clearer, as if it was about to materialize from false, empty, to reality, real. The engraving process did not end with the completion of these abilities. Memories of playing Minecraft in his previous life continuously surged in Li Jie's mind, and he gradually engraved all the rules he could remember into the divinity. Because Li Jie was not a high-level Minecraft player in his previous life and hadn't tried all the gameplay, he mostly built strange structures in creative mode and tried out popular things like iron farms, so he couldn't remember many rules. The speed of thought flow was very fast. The rules, which would have been very complex to express in words, were all engraved into the divinity without much time, and the grass block suspended in the very center of the divinity had also condensed into a solid form. Li Jie withdrew his consciousness from the divinity, and suddenly felt a wave of weakness throughout his body, his head throbbing with pain, and he was so uncomfortable that he couldn't muster any strength, as if he had a severe cold. His body involuntarily slumped, and if he hadn't forced himself to gather a little strength, he would have collapsed directly to the ground. At this moment, Li Jie also realized that although he had only designed and materialized a virtual divinity, it was still a divinity, and he had engraved so many abilities and rules. His current mortal body simply did not have that much energy to provide. The fact that he wasn't directly drained into a husk was probably due to the passive strengthening he received when his ability awakened. It seems that in the future, when designing any abilities or treasures, he still needed to pay attention to the consumption, lest he accidentally play himself to death. Looking at the divinity emitting colorful radiance between his hands, Li Jie temporarily ignored the physical weakness and mental discomfort. He forced himself to stay alert and used his mind to control the divinity to fly towards his glabella, feeling it gradually merge into his soul. As the godhead merged into Li Jie's soul, strands of energy were absorbed. Various radiation energies, thermal energy, weak wind energy from flowing air in the space, mental energy emanating from the antique shop next door. Li Jie felt his body gradually become stronger, and the throbbing pain in his head slowly dissipated. After confirming he was fine, Li Jie slowly stood up and walked directly to the window. An increasingly dense energy attracted him. He abruptly pulled open the curtain, and the afterglow of the setting sun fell upon him. A sense of fullness gradually replaced the physical weakness. Li Jie's godhead continuously extracted this precious energy, cleansing his body bit by bit, allowing him to take a crucial step on his extraordinary path. Ha 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 ha. World, here I come. At this moment, Li Jie felt his whole body filled with power, and a surge of heroic spirit welled up in his heart. Beep beep. A honk interrupted his Chunabu behavior. He looked towards the courtyard entrance, where a small car was slowly driving in, heading towards the garage. Li Jie knew that his parents must be home from work. Although he was a bit unaccustomed to interacting with his parents in this life at first, it was only a matter of breaking the mystery of the womb. The past 16 years of living together were real, and after a week, there was no awkwardness left. Thump thump thump. Soon, Li Jie heard footsteps coming up the stairs, heading directly towards his room. Honey, are you there? I'm coming in. Click. The doorknob turned, and a tall figure flashed in. She was wearing a tailored black women's suit, with dazzling long blonde hair tied into a high ponytail. She had beautiful blue eyes, a straight nose, fiery red lips, and fair skin. She looked to be in her 30s, a typical Western beauty. She was Alice Li, Li Jie's mother in this life. Alice's gaze lingered on Li Jie's easel for a moment, a hint of curiosity flashing in her eyes, before turning to Li Jie's face. She quickly walked up to Li Jie, wrapped her arms around his head, and gently stroked his hair, as if petting a cat. Sigh. Li Jie sighed helplessly, gently broke free, and took a few steps back, creating distance from Alice. Mom, I'm not a child anymore. Can you please stop stroking my head like that? Oh Tilda, our little artist is also a little man now, and doesn't like his mommy's affection anymore. Alice smiled, unfazed by Li Ji's actions. Li Jie looked helpless. He had no way to deal with his mother. He wondered if it was influenced by his own Joker soul, that he would have such a teasing mother in this life. Alright, little artist, it seems you're in a good mood lately, even having the inclination to paint those childlike artworks. Alice said, glancing at the blocky painting on the easel, her tone teasing. Li Ji's expression was calm, not at all embarrassed by the teasing. Fine. Fine. Little man, not cute at all, not as fun as when you were little. Alice said this, but the smile on her face didn't lessen at all. Let's go, let's see what grand meal your dad is preparing. As she spoke, a hint of anticipation unconsciously appeared on Alice's face. Seeing Alice's expression, Li Jie couldn't help but wonder if his dad had captured his mom's heart by first capturing her stomach with his excellent cooking skills back then. However, his dad's cooking was indeed good. Even if it didn't reach the standard of a Michelin-starred chef, it was certainly good enough to open a restaurant. Li Jie and Alice went down the stairs one after another, walking towards the dining table. In the open kitchen directly facing the dining table, Li Ji's father, Li Chuang, was busy. He was tall and robust, with thick black long hair tied into a ponytail just like Li Ji's. His handsome, masculine face was clean-shaven, making him look like a dashing uncle. Wearing gray dress pants and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, revealing a pair of strong arms, he was slicing several red tomatoes on a cutting board. Wife, Li Jie, you've come at the right time. Tonight, we'll have tomato and egg noodles, delicious and simple. Just a moment more, it'll be ready soon. Alice's face had already shown anticipation when she saw the tomatoes Li Chuang was slicing. Hearing him say that, her face was even more drooling with hunger. Li Jie looked speechless. Seeing Alice's greedy expression made him feel that he had underestimated his mother's love for food. However, thinking of his dad's cooking and the deliciousness of tomato and egg noodles, he couldn't help but feel a little excited himself. Li Jie, come and get the noodles. Li Chuang called out to Li Jie, and he himself was already carrying a bowl of noodles towards the dining table, placing it directly in front of Alice. Wife, quick, try it. See if my cooking has improved. Be careful, it's hot. Thank you, darling, your cooking is even better than before. Li Jie watched his parents' display of affection with a calm expression. There was nothing he could do, it was like this every day, so he was already used to it. He held his bowl and slowly slurped the noodles. Not bad, it really has improved. Soon, Li Jie finished one bowl and went directly to the kitchen to ladle another. By the way, should I add an ability to the godhead to sustain life by absorbing energy? Speaking of which, should I also add an environmental adaptation ability, preferably one that allows survival in outer space? No, that's not right. I'm supposed to become a new dimensional demon god. The rules within the godhead are with me, so I should have a deified body. I don't need to add these messy abilities at all. Li Jie listened to his parents' sweet talk while his mind wandered, thinking about what other abilities needed to be added to his godhead. But for now, it seems no extra additions are needed. Once there's enough energy in the future, he can add any desired ability anytime. The dinner ended with a mix of public displays of affection and wandering thoughts. After helping clean up the kitchen, Li Jie went straight upstairs, not wanting to be a third wheel between his parents anymore. Li Jie, don't forget to wake up early tomorrow morning, you have school. That's right, little artist, do you want mommy to ask the school for a few more days off for you? Li Chuang and Alice's words came one after another, filled with concern and reminders. No need, I'm perfectly fine now. I can go back to school normally starting tomorrow. Li Jie felt a warmth in his heart and declined Alice's offer to ask for more leave. Speaking of which, the school he attends seems to be called Midtown High School, a very famous school in the Marvel Universe, from which many superheroes and supervillains have emerged. His deskmate is also a famous person. It seems his school life won't be boring from now on. In the early morning, after a simple breakfast of bread and milk prepared by Alice, Li Jie rode his bicycle to school. To be honest, Li Jie wasn't very interested in school. After all, if he wanted to learn something, he could completely self-study. Learning knowledge, in the end, is about strengthening one's understanding and utilization of the world's rules. Li Jie could even design a brand new world himself. Although most of the rules were forcibly realized through his design abilities, it didn't detract from the overall achievement. Being able to do it is being able to do it. So, for him, learning knowledge was no longer a necessity. Moreover, his godhead contained a specially designed ability to scan and record information. As long as he wished, he could constantly scan everything around him and record all the information he obtained. He didn't need to do anything. As long as he lived normally, one day he would master all the knowledge in the world. By that time, Li Jie could confidently declare to anyone, I am civilization. I am knowledge. The reason Li Jie still went to school was partly because he hadn't figured out how to explain his mutant identity to his parents, and partly because he had a few good friends at school. Of course, these weren't the main points. The main point was that these friends had quite a bit of screen time in the Marvel Universe, and how could he, a fun-loving person, not get involved? If he wasn't there, how could he erase the parts he didn't like? And if he wanted to subvert this world, he needed a suitable entry point. Anyway, he didn't have any good plans yet, so weren't these friends the best excuse to get involved in the world's plot? Just as Li Jie's thoughts were racing, pondering various future plans while cycling and being distracted, the school gate was already close at hand. Beep beep. Hey, good morning. Li, are you alright? I heard about what happened to you. I didn't expect you to encounter something so terrible. A convertible sports car stopped next to Li Jie. A handsome young man, with one hand on the steering wheel, turned his head towards him, a slight smile on his face, and spoke to him with a tone of concern. Oh, good morning, Harry. I'm fine now, thank you for your concern. I'm not dwelling on it anymore. After all, living in this world, there's nothing you can do when you encounter such things. There will probably be many similar incidents in the future, so just consider it getting used to it in advance. Li Jie thanked him for his concern, speaking with a nonchalant expression. That's right, Harry Osborn, the second-generation Green Goblin in the original timeline, was one of Li Jie's friends at this school. And Peter Parker, the popular protagonist of the Marvel Universe, was naturally also his friend. Speak of the devil, a young man also riding a bicycle squeezed his brakes and stopped behind Li Jie. It was Peter Parker, the thin young man who hadn't taken off his glasses yet and looked like a bookworm. Hey. Good morning, Harry and Li. Li, I heard you encountered a mutant, and he pushed his girlfriend under a truck. Is that true? I heard that mutant was covered in scales, looked like a monster, and had a mouth big enough to swallow a person. Oh my god. That's just terrifying. Thank goodness you came back unharmed, you're really lucky. I'm not saying you ran fast, I just mean it's great that you're alive. Yes, buddy, that's what I mean, you understand. Li, you should understand, I'm just a little excited, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with running fast. On the contrary, I think you did the right thing. When you encounter something so terrible, you should run immediately. I really don't understand why those people taking pictures didn't run. Peter Parker, indeed one of the most famous chatterboxes in the Marvel Universe, bombarded him with words as soon as they met. Li Jie felt a swarm of bees flying past his ears. Alright, Peter, I know you're just concerned about me, I won't misunderstand you. Now let's quickly go into school, we can talk slowly later. Li Jie quickly interrupted his verbal bombardment, gestured to Harry, and was the first to ride his bicycle towards the school. Peter, let's go, Li is right, we should go in first. Harry didn't wait for Peter's reply, started his sports car, and followed Li Jie into the school. Oh, alright, let's go in first then. Peter had no choice but to temporarily stop his verbal bombardment, pedaling his bicycle to follow behind Harry. When Li Jie, Harry, and Peter walked into the classroom together, the students, who were either chatting, playing, reading, or doing their makeup, all turned their gaze to Li Jie. They were silent for a moment, then the atmosphere suddenly became lively. That's Li Jie, right? He actually came to school so quickly. I thought he'd need at least a month to recover. Yeah, I heard that after that mutant's girlfriend was pushed under the truck, she was instantly flattened into a meat pie, blood and brain matter flowing everywhere, and some even splashed onto passers-by. It was truly terrifying. And disgusting. Yeah, just thinking about it sends shivers down my spine. Guys, don't forget, there's also that mutant. It's all his fault. If it weren't for him, how could his girlfriend have died so miserably? Exactly. I say those mutant freaks should all be locked up in prison. They shouldn't be allowed to live in the city. Those freaks should be out in the wilderness, keeping company with wild beasts. Li Jie was originally in a good mood. His two friends had given him an excellent entry point for subverting the world. At this moment, hearing his classmates' blatant discrimination and insults towards mutants, he suddenly felt as if he had eaten something foul, and his mood instantly soured. Although he knew from the beginning that this country had a deep aversion to mutants, even before he broke through the mystery of the womb, even if he didn't discriminate against or insult mutants due to his father's teachings, he still had an instinctive sense of repulsion influenced by his upbringing. Now that he had broken through the mystery of the womb, and was himself a mutant, seeing the behavior of these classmates, he felt a flame burning in his heart. Just wait. When I unleash the wave of power, these people will realize that whether it's mutant or not, power is everything. Ding a ling. The bell signaling the end of class brought Li Jie back from his thoughts. He greeted Peter, his deskmate, and prepared to go out for some fresh air. Li, are you alright? I've noticed you've been a bit distracted ever since you came into the classroom. Is something bothering you? You can tell me, maybe I can help. Peter followed him, speaking sincerely to Li Jie. Peter's right, Li. If something's bothering you, you can tell us. We're friends, aren't we? Harry also came over at this moment. Thank you, Peter and Harry. You've always been my best friends. If there's anything I can tell you, I definitely won't keep it to myself. I'm just a bit emotional. This country's attitude towards mutants is a bit too harsh. Why should the entire mutant race be implicated because of a few bad mutants? Li Jie didn't reveal his mutant identity. He still needed some accumulation. Although the godhead he designed possessed various powerful abilities, it couldn't be fully utilized without sufficient energy. Although he wasn't afraid of anyone harming him now, gunshots or bombs would only accelerate his energy accumulation. Why seek trouble when he could just lie low? He still needed a temporary hibernation. Once his accumulated energy reached a certain level, he could gradually materialize the dimension. By then, energy would be a simple matter of 1 or 2 red stones. Directly connecting the red stone to the origin of the universe, just like the infinity stones, wouldn't that make the energy infinite? Buddy, you're right. I also think their approach isn't good, but what can we do? We're just students. Peter is right, Li. Don't be bothered by their words. It's not something we can control. Peter and Harry advised him in unison. Guys, you're right. Let's not talk about those depressing things. Let's talk about something happy. Peter, what have you thought about the thing I told you last time? Peter's face flushed slightly, and he stammered somewhat shyly. Li, are you sure? Will that really work? Are you two talking about some secret plan? I don't understand. Harry, who was beside them, listened to Li Jie and Peter's conversation with a puzzled expression. Haha, Harry, don't you know? Peter likes Gwen, but he's too embarrassed to confess, so he only dares to secretly pay attention to her every day. I really couldn't stand his sneaky behavior, so I gave him an idea, to gradually build Gwen's affection for him through everyday interactions. Li Jie deliberately looked at Peter with a teasing expression as he explained to Harry. Sure enough, Peter's face became even more embarrassed. Upon hearing this, Harry's expression also became somewhat teasing, and his smile grew even brighter. Oh, then I'll have to help you out properly, so you can successfully win Gwen over. No need. I feel like things are fine as they are now, do I really have to confess? Peter's voice became somewhat faltering, and he looked resistant. Peter, you can't be like this. Girls like to be pursued. If you don't do anything, are you just going to watch Gwen get pursued by someone else? You know, Gwen is a very excellent girl, and there are many boys who want to pursue her. Don't regret it later. Then what should I do? Will Gwen like a bookworm like me? Don't all the girls in school like football players like Flash Thompson? Does Gwen like boys like that too? Peter became a bit flustered after Harry's words, speaking with a sense of anxiety and apprehension. So tell me, do you want to pursue Gwen or not? Harry and I will help you brainstorm ideas. Unknowingly, they had walked onto the sports field, slowly strolling along the track. Li Jie walked to the side of Peter and Harry, enjoying the sunlight. A continuous stream of energy entered his godhead. Since he only absorbed the energy from the direct sunlight hitting him, Harry and the others didn't notice anything unusual. Suddenly, Li Jie gestured to Harry with his eyes, while subtly slowing down his pace. Harry glanced behind him, following Li Jie's gaze. His smile became a bit strange, and he also subtly slowed his pace, discreetly blocking some of Peter's view with his body. I of course want to pursue Gwen. Harry, you must help me. Due to Li Jie and Harry's brainwashing, Peter's mind was in a mess, and he spoke his true feelings without thinking. Ha 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 ha. Peter, we will definitely help you. Isn't that right, Harry? Hee hee. That's right. Li and I are your best friends, how could we not help you? Peter was somewhat bewildered by Li Jie and Harry's sudden laughter, but he was happy about his friend's support. He felt both shy and expectant about having directly stated his desire to pursue Gwen. Hi. Peter, Li, and Harry, hello. I think I heard someone wants to pursue me. When Peter heard the voice of the speaker, his face already looked a bit off. When he saw the owner of the voice, his face turned as red as if it were about to smoke, and his whole body seemed to stiffen, his head feeling dizzy. Is this your help, Li and Harry? You truly are my best friends. Peter's mind was a mess. He finally understood why his two friends had laughed so strangely earlier. Gwen had been strolling on the sports field and happened to see Li Jie and the others discussing something. She already had a good impression of the good student Peter, so she wanted to come over and say hello, but unexpectedly, she heard Peter's words as soon as she arrived. Gwen's eyes sparkled, and her cheeks were also a bit flushed. Someone liked her and wanted to pursue her. Even though she was a girl who dared to love and hate, she couldn't help but feel a little shy, her heart fluttering. She already had a good impression of Peter. If he could openly pursue her, Gwen wouldn't mind giving him a chance. She looked at Peter with eager anticipation, her direct gaze making Peter feel completely flustered. Gwen, when did you arrive? Did you hear everything? Gwen didn't speak, only continued to look at Peter. A few more days passed. Following their previous unexpected encounter, an ambiguous feeling lingered between Peter and Gwen. Even without officially confirming a romantic relationship, the communication between the two became much more frequent. Li Jie was still lying flat, though he spent more time sunbathing than usual, and occasionally scanned and recorded information about things. Father and Alice weren't suspicious of Li Jie starting to enjoy sunbathing, they just thought he might have been stimulated by the mutant incident and wanted to experience more light and warmth. Li Jie slowly accumulated energy through his daily life without any sense of urgency, as peaceful living was incredibly precious in this chaotic Marvel universe. When energy was urgently needed, he could completely obtain large amounts of it in a short time through certain means. While Li Jie was enjoying his peaceful life, some people were far from calm. Meanwhile, inside Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, a group of people were discussing something. Hey, Logan, put down your cigar, we're having a meeting. Cyclops Scott Summers still didn't get along with Wolverine Logan, challenging him whenever he had the chance. Logan didn't humor him either, taking a deep drag from his cigar, blowing smoke toward him, and looking at him provocatively. Alright, Scott, Logan is always like this, you know that. Phoenix Jean Grey defended Logan as usual, which greatly annoyed Cyclops, but he refrained from speaking further. Storm Aurora Munro was the most emotionally stable among them. Unaffected by the others, she directly asked Professor X Charles Xavier. Professor, did you call us here for something? Professor X, sitting in his wheelchair, watched their conversation with a smile. He truly enjoyed this peaceful life. Upon hearing Storm's question, his expression became somewhat serious. Aurora, you should still remember what I told you all a while ago, right? I've been thinking recently, and I still feel that something about this matter is off, which is why I called you over to discuss it again. Professor, are you referring to that poor mutant compatriot who tragically killed his girlfriend when his power awakened on the street? For something like that, we don't really have a reason to help him, do we? After all, He did that openly in public. It was Phoenix Jean Grey who posed the question. No, Jean, I'm not talking about that poor mutant compatriot. In fact, when I found out about that incident, I carefully scanned the area with my psychic power. I discovered that besides that mutant compatriot, there should have been another mutant compatriot who also awakened their ability. However, I sensed that this other mutant compatriot was somewhat strange, because he didn't seem to have lost control. He's really lucky. Mutants who don't lose control during awakening are truly rare. Logan, chewing on his cigar, was vulgar as always. Logan, you are truly vulgar. Predictably, it was Cyclops again. Logan, you're right, he is indeed very lucky, but that's not the point. I scanned several times afterward, intending to send a message to that mutant compatriot asking if he wanted to come to our school, but then I discovered a problem. The mutant compatriot initially felt very weak to me, just like a normal person who hadn't awakened any abilities, which isn't unusual. Many mutant compatriots are equally weak. But just as I tried to establish a psychic connection with him, my psychic power was blocked. I realized this wasn't an ability he consciously activated. I felt as if something on his soul was protecting it. This was indeed strange. Something was protecting his soul without him activating an ability. Mutant abilities are usually actively deployed, with few being passive. Professor, could he be one of those rare mutants whose ability activates automatically, and his power is specifically to protect his soul from harm? Phoenix Jean Grey offered a reasonable analysis. Jean, your analysis makes a lot of sense, but I haven't finished yet. A few days ago, I checked on that compatriot's status again, as his situation is quite rare. The result was that his X-gene energy signature slowly faded, and then almost completely vanished. I am certain that my senses were not mistaken. I thought his life was threatened and nearing its end, so I attempted to forcibly break through his soul defense to make him leave some information. Unexpectedly, his soul's automatic defense was gone, and his soul directly consumed my psychic energy. Fortunately, I reacted quickly, or I don't know what the consequences would have been. It was then that I realized his life wasn't threatened, he must have been activating his own ability. Then I noticed his aura was weak for a period, and then slowly recovered. After that, the energy signature on his body kept getting stronger, but the X-gene energy signature completely disappeared. I've been monitoring his situation these past few days, and I've found that the energy signature on his body hasn't stopped increasing in strength, but the X-gene energy signature has never reappeared. This is why I called you all here today. After Professor X finished speaking, the X-Men present all frowned subconsciously. As everyone knows, mutant abilities are housed within the X-gene. If the X-gene energy signature disappears, it means that the mutant is either dead or has been injected with an inhibitor. And regardless of the situation, the mutant would become extremely weak. At this moment, what had they heard? The X-gene energy signature was gone, yet the energy signature on his body was constantly growing stronger. Didn't this prove that the mutant was not only not weakened but was continuously gaining power? This was truly shocking news. All these phenomena indicated that this unknown mutant compatriot had used unknown means to break free from the influence of the X-gene. He had completely mastered his power, rather than passively utilizing it while still bearing the negative effects of the X-gene. Could he then help other mutants completely master their abilities, freeing them from the effects of their power defects, or even allowing them to completely escape the negative influence of the X-gene, just like him? The X-Men were all deeply moved, immersed in the beautiful fantasy that mutants could overcome their ability defects. For a moment, no one spoke. Professor X clearly knew what they were thinking and did not interrupt the X-Men's fantasies, quietly waiting for them to compose themselves. The first to recover was Wolverine Logan. His long life and various hardships had made his spirit exceptionally resilient. Professor, since his special situation has been confirmed, let's go and bring him back directly. Someone who can free mutants from the limitations of their abilities and the X-gene is too important. Even if his situation cannot be replicated, he is still a hope. Maybe this lucky fellow can even give me a good treatment for my bone spurs. In Logan's view, since the importance of that mutant compatriot to the mutant side had been understood, there was no need to hesitate, just bring him back. Although his proposed solution was simple and crude, and his words were rough and mocking, it was undeniably a correct method. The others also came back to their senses and, hearing Logan's words, were somewhat moved. Even Cyclops Scott Summers didn't contradict him at a time like this. Clearly, everyone agreed with Logan's opinion. A compatriot who could make up for the defects of mutants, they absolutely had to protect him well, as they deeply understood how dire the situation of mutants was in the US. No method could be safer than bringing him directly back to their school for protection. After all, the X-Men were not to be trifled with, and they had Professor X as their stabilizing force. But the professor didn't directly tell them to bring the person back. Instead, he gathered them, which meant there must be something puzzling him. Professor, Logan is right. This is hope for changing the situation of mutants. If they can overcome their ability defects, many mutants can from then on, they were no longer discriminated against by society. Maybe in the future, no one will reject mutants anymore. Cyclops Scott Summers grew more excited as he spoke, thinking of the various persecutions mutants had suffered in the past, and of the students at the school troubled by uncontrollable abilities. He subconsciously touched his red quartz glasses. He thought about how, ever since his Cyclops ability awakened, he could no longer freely view the world with his own eyes. Barring any accidents, these glasses would be with him for life. He had already accepted this outcome. After all, compared to those mutant compatriots whose bodies had undergone severe mutations, he was already very lucky. But when he heard the professor's introduction of this newly awakened mutant compatriot, his heart still involuntarily skipped a beat. If he could, he still wanted to get rid of the defect of his Cyclops ability, throw away those red quartz glasses that seemed welded to his face, and become a normal person. Professor X did not immediately respond to Logan and Scott, merely scanning the X-Men's faces one by one. Professor, let's go bring him back. Phoenix Jean Grey couldn't help but make the request. She was undoubtedly the X-Men member who most hoped to control her own ability, as she was too aware of its terrifying power. Previous instances of losing control had fully demonstrated that she could not control her ability. As she aged, her abilities grew stronger, but this also made her feel that her powers could go out of control at any moment. She feared losing control at some point and hurting her friends, causing irreversible consequences. This mutant compatriot was able to control his ability shortly after awakening it, and even freed himself from the X gene's restrictions on him. This gave her hope. Professor, if there are any problems, you can tell us directly, and we'll solve them together. Storm Aurora Munro's expression was firm. She didn't rush him but directly asked if there were any difficulties. Her emotions were very delicate and rich, and her past hardships had forged her indomitable spirit. So, even though she was also very excited, she didn't directly urge him, because from the professor's reaction, there must be some reason preventing him from making a direct decision. And she, of course, wanted to know it and solve it. Hey, Professor, if there's a problem, just tell us directly. Being so wishy-washy is just wasting time. Logan's words were still as simple and direct. As a beast forged in battle, he preferred a simple and crude approach and couldn't stand Professor X's indecisive nature. Professor X saw the X-Men's reactions and knew it was time to speak his mind. He indeed had some concerns. All right. It seems you all want to bring that mutant compatriot back, and so do I. But you've all overlooked a problem. Since he can already break free from the X gene's restrictions and completely control his abilities, he can completely hide himself. He can directly remove his mutant title. Will he still acknowledge himself as a mutant? Will he be willing to step into the mutant quagmire? Professor X's words were like a cold wind, dispelling all the X-Men's beautiful hopes. They couldn't help but ask themselves. Yes. If they could also break free from the X gene's restrictions and completely control their abilities, as long as they didn't expose themselves, who would know their mutant identity? After all, once the X gene, the most important marker, became ineffective, he would just be an ordinary person with superpowers. They all knew that in this world, besides mutants, there were many other ways to possess extraordinary powers. Gods, magic, human modification, people's repulsion towards powers obtained through other methods was not strong, as these methods were secretive and rare, difficult to acquire, known by few, and not widely spread. Mutants, however, were different, numerous, widely distributed, coupled with the common phenomenon of losing control when their abilities awakened, and extensive government propaganda. Living in such an environment, people's repulsion towards mutants became a matter of course. In such an environment, that mutant compatriot probably wouldn't want to bear the mutant label and get involved in such a quagmire. He would likely prefer to hide himself and continue living his peaceful life. This wasn't an evasion of mutant identity, but rather the logical thinking of a normal person. In the US, no normal person would want to bear the burden of being a mutant for no reason. For a time, the X-Men were all lost in thought, their expressions constantly shifting. Professor X also looked hesitant, unable to make up his mind. He had initially felt incredibly excited about what had happened to this fellow mutant. But he was, after all, a man of noble character. He could not bring himself to force his ideas onto others. On one hand, he wanted to bring him back immediately to see if the miracle that occurred to him could be replicated. On the other hand, he did not want to drag a fellow mutant, who had managed to escape the burden of being a mutant, back into the mutant quagmire. This left his heart deeply conflicted. He saw the desires and expectations of the X-Men clearly. He needed the X-Men to help him make a decision. The first to break the silence was Phoenix Jean Grey, who had the most urgent need to control her abilities. She truly could not bear the harm caused to her friends when her powers went out of control, that would make her break down. Professor, no matter what, we must go and talk to him. Perhaps he would be happy to help us. We cannot judge others based solely on our own assumptions. Please, Professor, tell us where he is. I will go and plead with him. Professor X was clearly caught off guard by Jean Grey's reaction, having not expected her emotions to be so intense. At the same time, this helped him make up his mind. Jean was right, these thoughts were all his own. He should ask the fellow mutant what he thought. He could easily erase the memories of those around him after the conversation, which was not difficult for him, provided he wished to. Although he often didn't want to use his abilities to control or influence others, he wouldn't hesitate when necessary. This way, if the fellow mutant didn't want to enter the mutant quagmire, their visit wouldn't have any lasting impact on him. All right. Jean, you are right. I will go and talk to him personally. Since he had made up his mind, he would no longer hesitate. Professor, in that case, I will go prepare immediately. Jean, you come with me. Scott's spirit lifted. As the captain of the X-Men, this was the time for him to take the lead. Logan looked indifferent, puffing on his cigar with a look of contentment. Aurora also remained silent at this moment. Li Jie was about to receive a visit from the X-Men. Meanwhile, Li Jie was lying on his bed in his room, resting with his eyes closed, sinking his consciousness into his godhead. Thanks to the energy accumulation over the past few days, the energy within the godhead was quite substantial. He recalled his previous thoughts about energy, the idea of manifesting a red stone and connecting it to the root of the universe. He wanted to materialize a red stone in advance. It didn't need to be large, just having one, capable of connecting to the root of the universe, would eliminate any future energy shortage issues. You might ask why spend so much time manifesting a red stone instead of directly connecting the Godhead to the root of the universe. Well, if you think about the infinity stones used as doorstops at the Time Variance Authority, you should realize you've asked a foolish question. Li Jie was certain that he wouldn't confine himself to just this universe in the future, and connecting his Godhead to the root of the universe would only create a weakness for himself. Even if he could cancel the connection at any time, he still didn't want to. He hoped to maintain the independence and purity of his Godhead. In this world where many powerful gods and demons are constantly setting traps, who knows if there is something wrong with the root of the universe itself. But the red stone was different. The red stone was inherently designed to be used as an energy source. It was an energy aggregate itself, not involving rules or similar concepts. Even if there were problems, being concentrated inside it would make it difficult to affect the Godhead. Furthermore, even if the connection to the root of the universe was severed, the energy already stored inside the red stone would not disappear. He could designate a specific area within the dimensional space of his Godhead to continuously generate red stones. And then set an upper limit for the red stone's energy storage. He didn't truly need infinite energy. As long as enough energy was stored, such as the energy of a star. What difference would that make compared to infinite energy for an ordinary person? This way, no matter which universe Li Jie went to in the future, there would be no possibility of lacking energy. Inside his godhead, Li Jie thought while engraving the latest rules regarding the red stone onto the floating grass block. He was just about to try using his current energy to materialize a miniature red stone when he sensed a psychic energy lingering around him. He frowned. This feeling had occurred several times since he materialized his godhead. He guessed that Professor X must have discovered him when his abilities awakened and was likely trying to communicate. However, Li Jie currently had no desire to communicate with him, he just wanted to develop for a while first, so he ignored Professor X. If he tried to send a thought directly into his brain, he would use energy absorption to swallow the psychic energy he sent over, refusing to indulge him. When Li Jie designed energy absorption, the thought of adding psychic energy absorption was specifically to guard against Professor X. Now, he just wanted to say that he truly had foresight. Even if it wasn't to compensate for flaws, the information in his mind couldn't be known by others. However, Professor X's frequent harassment still made Li Jie feel quite annoyed. He was already considering whether or not to go to Xavier's school for gifted youngsters and have a serious talk with Professor X. Otherwise, if this continued, he was afraid he might eventually lose control and throw Professor X's wheelchair away. Screech tilde, knock 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 knock. Li Jie was preparing to ignore Professor X's psychic harassment as he had done before and continue his action of materializing the red stone. After a sound of brakes, the courtyard gate was knocked upon. Excuse me, who are you? Father Li Chuang's voice came through. It seemed strangers had arrived. At this moment, only Li Jie and his father were home. Thinking of the psychic harassment just now, Li Jie had a guess. Just as he was about to get up and look out the window, an introduction carried through the air. Hello, sir. I apologize for the intrusion. I am Scott Summers, this is Francis Xavier, and this is Jean Grey. Is Mr. Li Jie home? We are teachers from Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, and we have some matters we wish to discuss with Mr. Li Jie on this visit. Li Jie was now standing by the window, looking towards the courtyard gate. A strong man wearing red sunglasses, a bald old man in a wheelchair, and a red-haired beauty silently pushing the wheelchair. If not Professor X and his companions, then who else could it be? Father Li Brake was clearly puzzled by the X-Men's arrival, but he still enthusiastically led them into the living room. After asking for their preference, he poured a cup of hot water for the professor and the other two. Li Jie's nickname, come down quickly, someone is looking for you. In fact, even if father hadn't called him, Li Jie was already walking downstairs himself. Since they had come to find him, he would have a good talk with them. His design ability and the already materialized divinity were his greatest confidence. Moreover, when he saw Cyclops Scott Summers just now, he had a wonderful idea, and he couldn't wait to realize it. May I ask what you teachers wish to discuss with my boy? Can I be of any help? Father Li Brake was still a bit wary of the professor's arrival and wanted to probe their true intentions. After all, the professor and his companions didn't look like ordinary teachers. Except for Phoenix Jean Grey, who seemed relatively normal, the other two wore sunglasses and sat in wheelchairs. They looked strange no matter how you saw them. The professor and his companions were not surprised by the wariness Li Brake showed, they knew they didn't look like normal teachers. However, the professor still explained. I apologize, Mr. Li. I know our visit is a bit presumptuous, but we have some important matters that we must discuss thoroughly with Mr. Li Jie. Mr. Li, how much do you know about mutants? Our school was established specifically to educate mutant students who have awakened their abilities. Actually, at first, the professor didn't want to directly reveal their mutant identity. However, considering the special circumstances of this child named Li Jie, the professor felt that this direct approach might make him less resistant to their arrival. And as Li Jie's father, the professor didn't want to hide it from him, he had the right to know the truth. Most importantly, Li Brake was not a native-born citizen of the US but grew up in that magical eastern country. As far as he knew, people in that country didn't show much rejection towards mutants. On the contrary, they would even envy those mutants who awakened their abilities. They regarded the awakened abilities of mutants as innate divine powers awakened by exceptionally talented individuals. They even muttered about the resurgence of spiritual energy, the arrival of a great era of immortal cultivation, and the awakening of spiritual roots. In short, it was very harmonious. Unfortunately, most countries in the world rejected mutants. This was also why he felt at ease directly revealing his mutant identity. Mutant school. Could it be that Li Ji's nickname has awakened his abilities? Stinky kid. He's still hiding it from his father and mother. Is he afraid we'll reject him? Father Li Break, as the professor expected, did not show any signs of rejection. Instead, he was a bit annoyed that Li Jie hadn't told him and his wife. Li Jie wasn't surprised by Father Li Break's reaction. Because when he was a child, Li Break often told him various immortal hero stories, and after learning about the existence of mutants, he even expressed envy for their abilities. The reason Li Jie didn't tell him and Alice about his mutant identity from the beginning was that he wanted to give them a surprise after accumulating enough energy. Unexpectedly, Professor X directly laid his cards on the table, revealing the mutant identity. However, Li Jie didn't mind. Because he was about to break free from the current state of energy scarcity and achieve energy freedom. Father, I'm here. Hello everyone. You can tell me directly what you want. Li Jie gave his father a pleading look, then greeted the professor and his companions, and sat directly on the sofa opposite them. Li Break returned a look that said, "You're sensible," said nothing, and just watched them. The professor and the two others, although they had figured out Li Ji's identity from the beginning, were still surprised by his youth. After all, the two flaws of mutants, uncontrollable abilities and the limitations of the X gene, might have all been resolved by this young man not long after his abilities awakened. This was something their mutant community had never been able to achieve. Hello, Mr. Li Jie. I believe you've already heard our conversation, so I'll get straight to the point. We would like to invite you to join our academy, where all our compatriots are. I'm sure you'll love it there. Professor X did not assume a senior's posture because of Li Ji's age but spoke to him in an equal tone. Although Phoenix Jean Grey and Cyclops Scott Summers both wanted to take Li Jie back to the academy immediately, neither of them spoke. They just sat silently beside the professor, letting him handle the negotiation. They trusted the professor to manage everything properly. Professor, your main purpose in coming here today isn't just to invite me to join your academy, is it? After all, I've repeatedly sensed psychic energy lingering around me. The owner of that psychic energy is you, the famous Professor X. Seeing that the professor didn't want to tell the truth, Li Jie also laid his cards on the table, stating that he already knew his identity and his psychic probes. The professor was somewhat surprised by Li Ji's directness and his calm and indifferent demeanor, knowing everything. However, remembering Li Ji's file, which detailed his genius intellect from childhood, such a mature display was not particularly unusual. As for his identity, after Li Jie awakened his abilities, if he wanted to know anything about mutants, with his genius intellect, it wouldn't be difficult to find some mutant information in the corners of the internet. Alright, Mr. Li Jie. You're right, our true purpose isn't to have you join our school. What we truly want is to confirm some things about you. Of course, if you wish to join our school, we will certainly welcome your arrival. Li Jie felt a bit puzzled by the professor's statement about wanting to confirm some things. He hadn't had any contact with mutants, so what issue could be related to him? However, as his gaze swept over Professor X's bald head, a flash of inspiration crossed his mind. Psychic energy, sensing, X-gene energy reaction. In the movies of his previous life, when Professor X sensed mutants, he seemed to be able to directly perceive the strength of the X-gene energy reaction in their bodies. He currently only had energy reactions, but no X-gene energy reactions. As a top psychic who frequently sensed mutants, Professor X would definitely notice the changes and differences. Could that be the real reason they wanted to know? Knowing the professor's purpose, Li Jie felt a little excited instead. Isn't this an excellent opportunity to join the mutant community and directly influence them? Unconsciously, a brilliant smile appeared on Li Ji's face. Thinking about what he had thought of upstairs, Li Jie decided to be frank with them. Professor, what you want to know should be the changes in my body, right? The professor hadn't expected Li Ji's mind to be so sharp, directly discerning their purpose before he even said anything. This caught him off guard, but he also felt relieved. Since Li Jie had made it so clear, the possibility of them achieving their goal was much greater. Yes, Mr. Li Jie, I have some psychic abilities that allow me to observe changes that others cannot perceive. And the changes in your body are very important to us mutants. So we want to confirm if the changes in your body are what we think they are. Phoenix Jean Grey, unable to control her excitement at this moment, spoke before Li Jie could. Li Jie, may I call you that? The changes in your body are very important to me, please tell us, I beg you. Cyclops Scott Summers, seeing Phoenix so agitated, began to comfort her. Jean, relax, and listen to what Mr. Li Jie has to say. Li Jie glanced at Phoenix, knowing full well why she was so excited. It is well known that the Phoenix force within Phoenix had been suppressed by Professor X to the point of manifesting a dark Phoenix. And the dark Phoenix's heart was filled with frenzy, full of dark emotions like destruction, devastation, and jealousy. This caused Phoenix to constantly lose control of herself, doing things she would later regret. Ms. Jean Grey, rest assured. Anything you want to know, I will not hide it. Just ask whatever you want. Hearing Li Jie say this, the professor no longer beat around the bush and directly asked the question they most wanted to know. Father Li Chuang, nearby, also adopted an attentive posture. Thank you very much for your cooperation, Mr. Li Jie. Since you've said so, I'll directly state our question. Are you able to completely control your abilities and have you broken free from your abilities, reliance on the X gene? After the professor finished speaking, the anticipation in his eyes almost overflowed as he stared directly into Li Jie's eyes. The others also watched Li Jie unblinkingly, their expressions varied. Phoenix was the most nervous, her hands clenched into fists at some point. Li Jie didn't pay attention to their reactions, merely began to confess with a calm expression. Professor, you're not wrong, I have indeed completely controlled my abilities, and the X gene can no longer affect them. I have completely separated my abilities from the X gene. My abilities will never lose control for no reason again, and others can no longer use the X gene's weaknesses against me. Upon hearing this, the professor and the others unconsciously held their breath. Although they had some guesses, when Li Jie himself admitted these things, they still felt a surge of emotion. Professor, you should have one more question you haven't asked, right? For example, can my situation be replicated in other mutants? Li Jie didn't give them much time to react, directly throwing out the question they most likely wanted to know. So can you replicate your situation in other mutants? It was Phoenix who spoke first again, her voice trembling slightly. Of course. My abilities can absolutely do such a thing. Li Jie didn't hide anything, directly affirming Phoenix's fervent hope. That's great, Jean. You won't have to fear your powers losing control anymore. Cyclops was also very happy, but what made him happiest was that Jean would no longer be depressed due to her powers losing control. Li Jie's father Li Chuang had been quietly listening to their conversation. From the information revealed in their conversation, Li Jie had quietly solved the two biggest problems of being a mutant, which was an extraordinary achievement. He was proud of Li Jie for this, he truly was his son. However, what he most wanted to know now was what kind of ability Li Jie had awakened. Stinky kid, you've said so much, but you still haven't told us what kind of ability you awakened. Of course, if you don't want to say, then never mind. Despite saying this, his gaze was expectant as he looked at Li Jie. The professor and the others had just calmed their emotions, but upon hearing Li Chuang's question, they also wanted to know what Li Jie's awakened ability was. To be able to solve the two biggest problems for mutants at once, Li Jie's ability must be extraordinary, perhaps even reaching Omega level. It is important to know that Omega level represents infinite possibilities and is the most powerful existence among mutants. If Li Jie was an Omega level mutant, then even if they couldn't replicate his changes in other mutants, they would still strive to have him join their academy. Otherwise, if someone were to provoke him, there would certainly be uncontrollable consequences. That would make the relationship between mutants and humans even more tense, which was not what they wanted to see. Since he had already decided to be frank, Li Jie had no intention of hiding his abilities. After all, even if the whole world knew about his abilities, there would be no way to restrict him from using them, let alone find flaws to use against him. Father, I didn't say I wouldn't tell you, why are you so anxious? And there's nothing about my ability that can't be said, it doesn't matter even if the whole world knows. Li Ji's words surprised everyone present, but thinking about how Li Jie had already resolved his flaws as a mutant, and then considering that he might be an Omega-level mutant, they became relieved. Then, Mr. Li Jie, if you don't mind, could you tell us what ability you awakened? The professor was also a little curious about Li Ji's ability. Professor, do you know what a good work needs most first? Yes, it's design. Without a good design, a work is like a body without a soul. And my ability is to design works, and then make the designed works a reality. Whether they are illusory or real. After Li Jie finished speaking, he scanned the group, somewhat anticipating their reactions. When Li Jie finished speaking, just as he expected, everyone present was astonished. Clearly, they had fully grasped the power of Li Ji's ability and realized its truly incredible nature. However, the most excited person this time wasn't Phoenix, but Li Ji's father, Li Chuang. Ignoring the presence of the X-Men, he shot up, immediately thrusting his face right in front of Li Jie. Stinky kid, quick, tell me, what did you mean when you said that even illusory things can be designed and manifested? Can other people use the things you design? And, superpowers can also be designed, right? Li Jie was startled by his father's reaction, having not expected him to be so agitated. But remembering that he was a true descendant of the Zhonghua family, who grew up immersed in various myths and legends, possessing an instinctive yearning for transcendent power. Li Jie immediately understood his excitement. The questions Professor and the others were about to ask were immediately swallowed back. After all, compared to them, who were strangers, Li Ji's father was undoubtedly the most suitable person to ask these questions. At this moment, the hearts of the few people present were filled with anticipation for Li Ji's answer, while a deep sense of dread continuously surfaced. If Li Ji's ability could truly bestow transcendent power upon others. Once this fact became known, Li Jie would become a treasure and a wishing stone, coveted and pursued by everyone in the world, who would stop at nothing to seize control of him. At that point, if their desires couldn't be satisfied, the existence of mutants would become even worse. Mutants, possessing infinite possibilities, would unleash the most insane desires across the entire world. Countless ambitious people would shift their attention to weaker mutants, attempting to master powerful abilities like Li Ji's by studying them. Of course, there were disadvantages, but also advantages. Their mutant community would also gain hope for self-strengthening, making humans afraid to openly persecute their brethren. The smile had vanished from Professor's face, he had always desired peaceful coexistence with humanity. He did not want anything to disrupt the situation. This would shatter the balance he had worked so hard to maintain. Li Jie didn't know what Professor and the others were thinking, and even if he did, he wouldn't care. After all, he had long decided to overthrow this world. The original fate of the mutants fully proved that if they continued to interact with humans in the way Professor and his group did, tragedies would only repeat themselves. Only by overturning everything could they seize control of their own destiny. Whoa, don't get too excited. Father, you truly are my father, you hit the nail on the head. That's right. I can freely design and manifest any ability I want, and bestow that ability upon others. Any ability at all. There's just one small requirement. Father Li Chuang's face turned red, and his breathing became rapid. Spit it out, stinky kid. What exactly is the requirement? I'll figure out a way to help you. At this moment, Father Li Chuang couldn't help but recall the excitement he felt as a child when he first read Shanja novels, the contents of which utterly fascinated him. Originally, as he grew older, he moved from the Zhonghua family to settle here. He had buried those fantasies deep within his heart. Although when he learned about the existence of mutants, he had once wondered if he might be an unawakened mutant himself. But after meeting and falling in love with Alice, starting a family, and having children, those thoughts faded away. He only wanted to take good care of his family. What he never expected was that a few people who were clearly extraordinary would show up at his house today, and openly reveal their mutant identities. Even more surprising was that his son, who had shown genius since childhood, had somehow awakened his own mutant ability without him knowing. And even solved the flaws inherent in mutants. Although he didn't say it outright, he felt immense pride in his son's accomplishments. As for Li Ji's concealment, he didn't hold any ill feelings. After all, people in this country generally rejected mutants. Although he didn't mind, the fewer people who knew about this, the fewer accidents would occur. What surprised him the most was how powerful Li Ji's ability was, designing powers at will and even bestowing them upon others. It felt like a wolf was howling inside his heart. With an ability like this, could his childhood dream finally be realized? As for Li Ji's thoughts, could his own father's request possibly be refused? Besides, their father-son relationship was very good. He believed that even if he didn't ask, Li Jie would automatically offer to design an ability for him. But he hadn't expected there to be a requirement for designing an ability. Could he tolerate this? He absolutely had to help Li Jie solve it. Father, although my ability is very powerful, it didn't become infinitely strong all at once. After all, designing requires materials. Although it only requires my imagination and energy, I don't lack imagination, but energy won't spontaneously come to me. Even though I am currently designing a new ability for this purpose, it won't show results immediately. I still need time to accumulate energy. If you only want a weak ability, or perhaps an ability seed that allows you to slowly accumulate energy and develop strength yourself, I can design it for you right now. What do you say, Father? Do you want it now, or would you prefer to wait until the near future, after I solve the energy issue, so I can design and manifest an ability with the exact strength you desire all at once? Li Jie didn't mince words and immediately stated his biggest current need. Professor and the others were also very surprised, not having realized that Li Ji's ability had such a requirement. But considering the power of Li Ji's ability, such a demand for energy was perfectly reasonable. So that's the case. Then I'll wait until you solve the energy problem before having you design an ability for me. We'll have to call your mother over then too. Father Li Chuang was no longer anxious. He only needed to wait a few days to realize his childhood dream, and he certainly possessed that much self-control. As for Li Ji's suggestion of giving him an ability seed and letting him slowly develop it and accumulate energy himself. Are you kidding me? With a genius son like this, why not fully enjoy the feeling of achieving everything in one step? Seeing that the father and son had finished talking, the professor then extended an invitation to Li Jie. Mr. Li Jie, I hereby invite you. Are you willing to join our academy? I promise that our academy will do its utmost to help you become stronger. This is not just for you, but also for our fellow mutants all over the world. Cyclops spoke first this time, before Phoenix. The professor is right. As the captain of the X-Men, I can also assure you that if anyone wants to harm you, they'll have to get past us, the X-Men, first. Of course, we also have many fellow mutants here who need your help. Li Jie glanced at Cyclops, met the professor's gaze, and then looked at Phoenix's expectant eyes. He thought of his ingenious idea again. It seemed that Xavier's school for gifted youngsters was a must-go. Alright, let him light the first fire of world subversion there. Alright. I agree to join your academy. I also want to see what a mutant academy is truly like. Moreover, I also have some matters that require your help. After confirming Li Ji's joining, the professor unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Although Li Ji's presence might bring many problems, he was confident that he could protect Li Jie within the academy and reduce the possibility of various problems occurring. The most important thing now was to quickly bring Li Jie back to the academy to avoid the possibility of him being discovered by other ambitious individuals. Oh, right, Professor. How will you handle my current school? Should my father and I go through the transfer procedures? Since he had already decided to join Xavier's school, some issues still needed to be resolved. At least he had to say goodbye to Peter and Harry. Li Jie, is it alright if I call you that? Don't worry, we will help you solve these problems. You just need to pack your things, and you can come directly to our academy. You definitely won't be disappointed with our academy. The professor said with a kind smile. Li Jie said nothing more. Since the professor said he would help him with these trivial matters, he would have less trouble. All right then, Professor. Give me the address. I'll pack up at school tomorrow and report to your academy myself. After seeing off the professor and the others, Li Jie and his father, Li Chuang, sat opposite each other. Stinky kid, are you really going to join their academy? An academy entirely composed of mutants will surely have many forces watching it. You don't need to get yourself involved in their troubles. Father Li Chuang, a person who could make a living on his own in such a chaotic country, knew the country's nature inside out. Don't worry, father. I'm not someone anyone can touch now. I've designed and manifested abilities to deal with anything. Even if I don't have enough energy now, it's not a problem. I cherish my life very much. Li Jie was happy about his father's concern, but he wouldn't change his mind. Alright, father supports your decision. You're already a man and can decide your own lifestyle. Father Li Chuang no longer tried to persuade Li Jie not to join Xavier's school. His son had grown up and had his own ideas, and as a father, he should support him. Also, stinky kid, you'd better think about how to tell your mother about awakening your mutant ability. Li Jie felt a headache immediately upon hearing this. His childlike mother, who knows how she would tease him. Early the next morning, Li Jie left the house. He thought about last night, after his mother learned that he had awakened his mutant ability, and such a powerful one at that. She was like a child who had discovered a fun toy. Her glowing eyes made him feel as if he had seen a hungry wolf with green eyes. If Li Jie hadn't promised to design the most suitable ability for her after solving the energy problem, he probably wouldn't have been able to sleep last night. With these thoughts, Li Jie had already entered the school and didn't see Peter or Harry. It was probably because he had arrived too early. Walking into the classroom, there were only a few scattered people. Li Jie ignored them and walked straight to his desk, beginning to pack. Although the others found it a bit strange, no one asked Li Jie why he was doing this. In this country, racial discrimination was very serious, and Asians like Li Jie were generally isolated by others. Only a few, like Peter and Harry, could become his friends. So, even if not for their identities, Li Jie genuinely considered them his friends. Soon, Li Jie had packed his things, but he didn't leave immediately. At the very least, he had to say a proper goodbye to Peter and Harry. As for Li Jie's original idea of using their identities to cause trouble, he felt there would be more opportunities to cause trouble at the Mutant Academy. Besides, he wasn't tied to Xavier's school, he could simply register there and then wander around. His abilities dictated that he couldn't stay put quietly. He could always get involved with Peter and Harry's matters later, it would be the same. Good morning, Peter. Have you seen Harry? I have something to tell you too. As soon as Li Jie saw Peter walk into the classroom, he immediately went over to him. Oh, good morning, Li. Peter noticed Li Jie's packed desk and instinctively asked. Ah, you mean this? I received a transfer invitation from an academy. Their conditions are good, and I've accepted. Today I'm just here to pack my things and to say goodbye to you and Harry. Peter was very surprised by Li Jie's sudden transfer and also a little sad. Li Jie was one of his few friends at school. However, he was still happy for Li Jie that he could transfer to a better academy. Congratulations, Li. I hope you can come back and visit us when you have time. Of course, you two are my best friends. Li Jie would certainly come back to visit them, after all, there were so many things happening around them. Hey, Li and Peter, good morning. Li, you said you're transferring to another academy. I hope you have a good time in your new academy. As Peter said, come back and visit us when you have time. Harry also walked into the classroom at this time. He had heard Li Jie's conversation with Peter. He didn't have any particular feelings about Li Jie transferring, it was a very normal thing. For this, he only had blessings. Following the address professor and the others gave, Li Jie went to Xavier's school himself. His father and mother did not follow him. They were quite reassured about their genius son, Li Jie. Sizing up the school, or rather, the manor, in front of him, Li Jie muttered to himself, Professor X is truly a rich man. He could easily use his own assets to maintain the Mutant Academy and support numerous mutants. And those high-tech training grounds, medical rooms, equipment research labs, and cerebro rooms hidden beneath the school, Only such a massive fortune could support Professor X in maintaining his naive idea of peaceful coexistence with humanity. If it weren't for his deep pockets, the X-Men's game of running around as free emergency labor would have long since fallen apart. After paying the taxi fare, Li Jie lifted his foot and walked straight towards the entrance of Xavier's school. Professor, who had already sensed Li Jie's unique energy signature approaching, was waiting at the school gate with a group of people. Li Jie, welcome to the team. This is Logan, and this is Aurora Munro. She is also a member of our X-Men. There are also others who aren't here right now, I'll introduce them to you later. In addition, there are many mutant students like you in the school. I believe you will definitely like them. Professor, whose wheelchair was being pushed by Phoenix, was positioned in front of the group. He welcomed Li Jie's arrival and introduced the new faces beside him. Hello, Li Jie. Nice to meet you. Storm greeted Li Jie. So you're the Li Jie that Professor and the others have been raving about. Didn't expect you to be just a kid. Still, welcome to the team. Just don't bother me when I'm busy. Wolverine was as crude as ever. Li Jie didn't mind Logan's words, he knew Logan was just a tough guy who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Professor, everyone, hello. I believe I don't need to introduce myself. If anything comes up in the future, feel free to come to me for help. I believe you will certainly need my abilities. Li Jie gave them a simple greeting and immediately brought up his abilities. He knew that whether his abilities could truly help other mutants resolve their defects was what they most wanted to confirm. Ah. Of course. We are a family now, and we definitely won't be shy about asking for help. They walked and chatted. When they passed the school sports field, Li Jie saw several mutant students using various abilities while playing basketball. This was the first time he had seen so many super-powered individuals activate their abilities together. Although no ability particularly stunned him, it was still novel. Aren't they full of energy? I truly hope our fellow mutants can live happily like them. Unfortunately, many mutants awaken abilities that have certain defects, which makes it impossible for them to hide themselves. Li Jie understood the hidden meaning in the professor's words. Perfect. He could finally realize his previous idea. Professor, I agree with your point of view. It seems many of our compatriots need some assistance. I am honored that my ability can help these compatriots, and I am willing to contribute to this cause. However, there is an old saying in the ancient East, heaven does not bless those who abandon themselves, and rain does not nourish rootless grass. Li Jie's words were very clear, he would only help those who sought him out for assistance. He couldn't possibly go begging those people to accept his help. Ah, certainly. People always need to seek their own salvation. Even God won't help those who willfully degrade themselves. Professor naturally understood Li Jie's meaning, he would only help those who sought him out for assistance. Professor didn't expect Li Jie to be able to solve the defects of all their mutant compatriots. He greatly appreciated the maturity and stability in Li Jie's words and actions. Mutants needed such outstanding compatriots, and he felt that Li Jie might become the leader of the younger generation of mutants. The few people following them understood the conversation between Li Jie and the professor, and they also agreed with Li Jie's idea. At the same time, they were wondering whether they should seek out Li Jie to fix the defects in their own abilities. Thank you so much, Li Jie. I wonder if Jean. Phoenix looked distracted. The thought of being able to escape the situation of losing control of her powers made her instinctively want to make a request to Li Jie. However, Cyclops interrupted her words. Cyclops had his own thoughts. He felt that since Li Jie had only recently awakened his ability, he might not be able to solve Phoenix's problem. After all, Phoenix is an Omega-level mutant. Even if Li Jie was also an Omega-level mutant, solving Phoenix's problem wouldn't be easy. If Phoenix had issues because of this, they wouldn't be able to handle the consequences. Professor. Li Jie. I want to try. Yes. Cyclops' true intention was that, as the captain of the X-Men, he should test Li Jie's solution for them. Moreover, even if his ability went completely out of control, he could still control the direction of his gaze, ensuring no one was harmed. Scott, why don't you think about it again? After all, Li Jie's ability only awakened recently. Li Jie, I'm not saying your ability is insufficient, I just think we should be cautious. Storm tried to dissuade Cyclops. She had always been a cautious and steady person. Wolverine said nothing, merely pulling a cigar from his jacket and placing it in his mouth without lighting it. Phoenix wanted to say something, but Cyclops stopped her again. Professor saw through Cyclops's intentions, pondered for a moment, and remained silent. What do you say, Li Jie? Are you able to help me resolve the defect in my body right now? My Cyclops ability cannot be voluntarily turned on or off, nor can I adjust the energy magnitude. I can only rely on special glasses, like the ones I'm wearing now, to assist in activating the ability. Cyclops didn't hesitate and immediately told Li Jie about the defect in his ability. Although he couldn't see his eyes, Li Jie knew he was definitely looking at him. Of course I can. Scott, you don't mind me calling you that, do you? Perfectly fine. I also have something I need your help with. We can help each other. Ha! Li Jie certainly wouldn't miss such a great opportunity. He had already figured out how to modify Cyclops's ability. This was going to be the first piece of work he designed. Even before starting, Li Jie's heart was already filled with excitement. Before starting, Li Jie decided to first replenish his energy. This was also where he needed Cyclops's help. As some have speculated, Cyclops's eyes should be connected to an energy dimension. Otherwise, with his ability constantly active, where would he get so much energy from his own body? This was also the most important reason why his Cyclops ability had always been uncontrollable. After all, he was just an ordinary mutant, still bound by the limitations of his mortal body. Mutants don't have any proper cultivation methods that allow them to continuously evolve their life essence. They can slowly control their abilities through cultivation. They only focus on improving their proficiency in using abilities and the methods of using them. This is a typical case of emphasizing technique over the fundamental principle. The flaws can naturally only be eliminated through ability mutation, biological research, or by accident or luck. Of course, thinking about these things now is a bit too far ahead. Li Jie was simply very interested in the energy from the dimension within Cyclops's eyes. At this moment, the group of them had arrived at the high-tech training ground located beneath the academy, led by Cyclops. The space here was vast, and the surrounding walls were covered with high-strength alloy, ensuring the training ground's sturdiness while also isolating it from outside scrutiny. Even if Cyclops's ability went out of control, the damage and losses could be minimized. Professor and the others stood at the edge of the training ground, watching the two people in the middle from a distance. Come on. Li Jie had already told them about his energy needs on the way, and also told them that he had designed and manifested the ability to absorb energy for himself. He just said that this was a method he came up with to solve the problem of scarce energy. Regarding other aspects, he only mentioned his ability to absorb mental energy, which came from the Black King's power. This also explained why Li Jie could absorb Professor X's mental energy. As for the Godhead, there was no need to tell them that. After all, their relationship wasn't good enough for him to tell them everything. Moreover, something like a Godhead, even if he had already said he could design and manifest anything, would still seem too high profile. Li Jie, are you sure you can absorb my optic blast energy? Cyclops's expression was very serious. He confirmed with Li Jie once more. After all, he didn't want Li Jie to get hurt because of him. I'm sure. Li Jie, of course, firmly affirmed his ability. After all, even if his body couldn't handle it, there was still a hungry Godhead, and that dimension was still just an aggregation of information. Receiving Li Jie's affirmative answer, Cyclops no longer hesitated. He placed one hand on the control of his visor, turning the power to the lowest setting. After all, accidents can happen, and he felt it was better to be safe. Cyclops aimed his gaze directly at Li Jie's foot. Just in case, it was better not to try on a vital spot at first. A finger-thick, dark red optic blast ray shot straight towards Li Jie's instep. The air around Li Jie's foot began to twist and boil. However, just as the energy touched Li Jie's instep, Li Jie's foot seemed to suddenly twitch, creating overlapping afterimages. And then, that energy suddenly vanished from Li Jie's instep. Professor X, standing by the training ground, couldn't help but show a hint of recollection in his eyes when he saw this scene. Li Jie's figure gradually overlapped with that man code-named Black King. He recalled the years when he and Eric fought against the Black King. Back then, their relationship was still very close, both young and full of spirit. Li Jie did not pay attention to the professor's reaction. He felt great now, constantly strengthening from soul to body. He felt so strong now that he could kill a cow with one punch. However, this amount of energy was still a drop in the bucket for what he wanted to do. Scott, you saw it, right? Don't be afraid of me getting hurt. Turn your power to maximum. This little energy isn't even enough to fill a tooth gap for me. I need more energy. Cyclops was also a straightforward person. Seeing that Li Jie truly absorbed his optic blast energy, and hearing Li Jie's words, he silently turned his visor's power to maximum. The originally thin energy ray suddenly became thick, and its landing point changed to Li Jie's chest. Li Jie didn't hesitate, opening his hands and fully accepting the baptism of the optic blast with his chest. This time, Li Jie did not directly use the energy to strengthen himself but stored it in the Godhead, accumulating energy for the upcoming events. Time slowly passed, and the few people by the training ground waited quietly. Cyclops's expression also gradually became strained. Clearly, maintaining his ability at maximum power continuously was not an easy task for Cyclops. Alright, Scott. Stop. I feel like I've absorbed enough energy now. Li Jie felt that he had absorbed almost enough energy. After all, his goal was not just energy. Manifesting the red stone was Li Jie's goal. Originally, Li Jie had wanted to manifest a miniature red stone when Professor and the others visited. Their visit interrupted his actions. Moreover, Cyclops's presence made him think of using Cyclops to absorb enough energy and then manifest a sufficiently large red stone all at once. After all, Li Jie didn't have much energy at the time, and even if he manifested a red stone, it would only be the size of a grain of sand at most. It would be impossible for such a small red stone to absorb much energy through its connection to the root of the universe. He wasn't the master of this universe. The red stone was essentially an energy-stealing device, and even if it wanted to steal enough energy, its own capacity needed to be large enough. This way, the red stone would steal more energy, and the speed at which it transformed into its complete form could also be faster. Once the red stone reached his design goal of storing the complete energy of one sun, he could use the red stone's energy to open up a dimensional space and then place this red stone into the Godhead's dimensional space. And with this red stone as the mother body, most of the excess energy would be used to condense other red stones, and a small portion would be used to manifest other matter in the dimensional space. The manifestation of the Godhead's dimensional world would accelerate. Ignoring the panting Cyclops and the curious professor and others who were approaching. Li Jie had not yet officially opened up dimensional space, so he couldn't directly bring physical matter into the Godhead. He could only manifest the red stone outside his body. He brought his hands together at his chest, using his will to guide the energy slowly between his hands. Amidst the colorful energy halo, a deep red object gradually became clear. Under the watchful eyes of Professor and the others, the energy halo slowly disappeared, and a sugar cube-sized, deep red cube lay quietly in Li Jie's palm. Looking at the sugar cube-sized red stone in Li Jie's hand, the professor and the others felt puzzled. They had thought Li Jie would design an ability for himself that could acquire massive amounts of energy, or perhaps strengthen his existing energy absorption ability. They didn't expect that after absorbing so much energy from Cyclops, Li Jie would manifest such an inconspicuous small red cube. The cube looked like compressed energy. Could it be that Li Jie's so-called method for solving his energy needs was simply to continuously compress Cyclops's laser energy like this? Upon thinking this, the X-Men's gazes toward Cyclops carried a hint of sympathy. But then again, Cyclops's ability was the most suitable among them for providing large amounts of energy for Li Jie to absorb. It seemed that in order to help Li Jie achieve energy independence sooner, Cyclops would just have to endure some hardship. Cyclops naturally saw the X-Men's gazes, and he also considered this possibility. His expression soured, but then quickly became resolute. After all, Li Jie's energy reserves were not just for himself, but also to help more mutant compatriots. As the captain of the X-Men, it was only natural for him to try his best to meet Li Jie's requests within his capabilities. It's just energy, right? Cyclops here has plenty to spare. This is fantastic. I will never have to worry about lacking energy again. Li Ji's voice reached Cyclops, making him think that Li Jie meant he wouldn't lack energy anymore thanks to his help. Although he felt a pang of bitterness, he was still happy to be able to help Li Jie. Don't worry, Li Jie. I will definitely try my best to satisfy your need for energy storage. My laser eyes only need a brief rest to be used normally again. Wait a moment, and I'll provide you with some more energy. As for solving my eye defect problem, I'm not in a hurry for that. Cyclops directly stated his thoughts, indicating his willingness to continue providing energy for Li Ji's energy storage. When Li Jie heard Cyclops say this, he was naturally confused. He had certainly seen the expressions of the professor and the others, but he had merely assumed they were marveling at his ability and didn't think too much of it. Only now, after hearing Cyclops' words, did Li Jie realize they mistakenly thought he intended to use Cyclops as an energy source or a power bank. Although Cyclops was indeed a very good energy source. But he, Li Jie, was the future dimensional demon god. How could he do something so tasteless? Furthermore, he already had his own way of solving the energy shortage problem. Li Jie raised his right hand, spread his palm, and displayed the red stone more clearly under the gaze of the professor and the others. Everyone, please allow me to formally introduce this red cube to you. I call it the red stone, and it is an energy polymer. The professor and the others all wore expressions that said, just as we thought, confirming that the red cube was indeed compressed energy. You must think that this red stone is just a simple energy polymer, right? No. No. In fact, I designed a powerful ability for it. It can directly connect to the root of the universe, providing me with a continuous stream of energy. From now on, unless the universe explodes, I will never run out of energy again. At this moment, Li Jie couldn't help but feel mentally exhilarated. He couldn't wait to share his joy with the others. Boom. After hearing Li Ji's introduction, the professor and the others felt a surging, powerful wave raging in their minds. What did they just hear? Connected to the root of the universe. This tiny red energy cube could actually connect to the root of the universe. Although they had tried their best to overestimate the strength of Li Ji's ability, they were still utterly shocked by this utilization of rules at the cosmic level. Li Jie, are you saying that this thing called red stone can connect to the root of the universe? The professor was a steady man, he suppressed his excitement and questioned Li Jie. That's quite impressive, kid. Logan also spoke up, his tone surprised. Even an old-timer like him knew that anything related to the universe was extraordinary. Oh, my god. Is this real? This is truly unbelievable. Phoenix and Storm, being women, were more perceptive, they fully grasped the power of this red stone cube and the incredible nature of Li Ji's ability. Although Cyclops was also greatly astonished by the power of the red stone manifested by Li Jie, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed he wouldn't need to constantly serve as Li Ji's energy source and power bank anymore. Yes, Professor. You heard correctly. This is the ability of the red stone. This is the solution to my energy needs that I finally came up with. After all, what else in this world could possess more energy than the universe? Of course, I didn't expect one red stone to store infinite energy, and even if it could, I wouldn't design it that way. In order to clearly know how much energy I possess, I specifically designed a storage limit for the red stone. As long as the energy storage reaches the standard of 1 sun, any excess energy absorbed by the red stone will begin to condense into a new red stone. So from now on, as long as I possess 1 red stone, I will never lack energy. The professor and the others were too stunned by Li Ji's detailed explanation to speak. The standard of 1 sun. What kind of concept was that? The entire solar system operates on the energy of the sun. Take humans on Earth, for example. All the energy consumed by the development of the human world, from the savage era to the current technological age, has been provided by the sun and converted by the Earth. And this energy is merely the insignificant sunlight scattered by the sun into space and absorbed by the Earth, not even scratching the surface of the sun's power. It was like a rotten orange accidentally left by humans in a corner, which inadvertently developed into a mold kingdom. And humans hadn't even noticed the existence of that rotten orange. Li Jie, first of all, congratulations on solving your energy shortage problem. However, I hope you don't reveal the existence of the red stone. Our situation as mutants is already very difficult. If those ambitious individuals learn about the red stone's existence, they definitely won't let you go. The energy of one sun, or rather, infinite energy, no ambitious person can resist its temptation. The professor truly deserved to be the mutant leader who had dealt with humanity for decades. Even shaken by the red stone's power, he could quickly consider the human reaction. Humans already coveted mutant abilities, and now there was a being like Li Jie who had created the red stone, a treasure that could almost be called infinite energy. He dared not imagine what crazy things those ambitious individuals would do if they learned about the existence of Li Jie and the red stone. Of course, Professor. I won't cause this kind of trouble for the mutants. Besides, if some ambitious person comes looking for trouble, just tell them about me. Before, my energy reserves weren't very sufficient, and I couldn't do much, but now. Hey. I can only say that if they dare to come looking for trouble with me, I will let them know what true power is. Li Jie expressed understanding for the professor's worries, but he wasn't concerned about anyone provoking him now. Previously, he didn't have much energy, and the abilities he designed and manifested couldn't directly reach the strength he intended. He could only slowly accumulate energy to strengthen his abilities. But now, once his red stone absorbs enough energy from the root of the universe, and even starts replicating itself. What kind of ability couldn't he design and manifest? And they could directly reach the strength he designed. If anyone dared to come looking for trouble with him, he had countless ways to let them know what true power was. He could also teach them that the strong must not be insulted. Hearing Li Jie's reply, the professor said nothing more. He just secretly resolved to pay close attention to Li Jie's mental state. After all, a teenager of Li Jie's age, suddenly possessing immense power, could do anything if provoked. If things reached that point, the relationship between mutants and humans would become even more tense. Even though Li Jie had already fully demonstrated his maturity and stability, and had shown signs of genius since childhood. But this was the most terrifying thing. The destruction caused by a mature and stable genius, once angered, would be more unpredictable than that of a volatile fool. Li Jie, has your red stone gotten a bit bigger? At this moment, the delicate-minded phoenix noticed something unusual. She had been observing the red stone in Li Jie's hand, as the red stone looked exactly like the most translucent ruby, deeply appealing to the natural feminine love for jewelry. Ah. Yes. Jean, your feeling is correct. The final size I designed for the red stone is not this compact appearance. The ultimate size of the red stone is a standard 1 cubic meter block. Moreover, the larger the volume of the red stone, the higher the efficiency of absorbing energy from the root of the universe, which is also why I needed to absorb Cyclops' laser energy. I did this precisely so I could manifest a sufficiently large red stone. Otherwise, I could have manifested the red stone from the start, but it might have been only the size of a grain of sand, and the efficiency would be imaginable. Li Jie adopted an attitude of answering anything she asked, explaining in detail to Phoenix about the intricacies of the red stone's energy absorption efficiency. As he spoke, he brought the red stone closer to her, allowing her to observe more clearly that the red stone was growing little by little. The people beside him were also listening to Li Jie's explanation. At this moment, Storm thought of something and immediately voiced her confusion. Li Jie, if, as you say, the red stone will eventually become a 1 cubic meter block, how will you carry it with you? Can you shrink it and then carry it on your person? The others also thought of this point, and they all fixed their gaze on Li Jie's face, their expressions carrying a hint of anticipation. They also wanted to know what method Li Jie would use to carry the red stone, which would eventually be 1 cubic meter in size and capable of self-replication. By this time, Cyclops had recovered. Actually, Cyclops wanted Li Jie to keep the red stone inside the academy, but doing so would suggest a desire to control Li Jie's energy reserves. It wouldn't be good if it created a rift between Li Jie and them. Moreover, it wasn't like Li Jie couldn't manifest another red stone. Doing this would only cause dissatisfaction in Li Jie. They certainly couldn't make such an unwise choice. On the other side, Wolverine, who had been silently listening to their conversation, had unknowingly lit the cigar clenched in his mouth. Li Jie's ability greatly astonished him as well. This tough guy needed some nicotine stimulation to calm his emotions. The professor had returned to his initial calmness, a kind smile reappearing on his face, his profound gaze quietly fixed on Li Jie. Phoenix was still observing the red stone, and upon hearing Storm's question, she only looked up at her. Aurora, you asked a good question, but I've already figured out how to solve this problem. I can design a space storage ability for myself, directly linking the space to my soul. This way, no one can take my belongings. Right now, the redstone energy isn't abundant, so manifesting a small space will suffice. Later, when the redstone energy increases, I can slowly expand the spatial scope. Li Jie did not tell them that the space he was about to manifest was the starting point of a dimension. Let them just think that what he designed was merely an ordinary storage space. Later, when they realized that what he designed was a dimension, and that he would become a dimensional demon god, like a creator god. Their reaction then will surely be interesting. Li Jie intentionally displayed the result of his ability manifestation design in front of them. He held the red stone in one hand, while the other hand was palm up, both hands raised simultaneously in front of his chest. Under the gaze of the professor and the others, guided by Li Jie's intention, a red halo gradually appeared over the red stone, which was visibly larger. Threads of red energy converged into a stream, slowly flowing into Li Jie's open, empty hand. The red energy gradually emitted a seven-colored halo, which was the sign of Li Jie activating his ability. As the red stone's energy flowed in, the seven-colored halo slowly formed a light sphere the size of a longan fruit, within which something vague was gradually condensing. The professor and the others gathered around, their eyes fixed tightly on the light sphere in Li Jie's hand. The red stone's energy continuously flowed toward the light sphere, and the seven-colored halo emitted by the sphere quietly dissipated, becoming transparent. At this point, one could clearly see a translucent blue cube suspended within the light sphere, like a glowing sapphire. As for why the space ability manifested as a blue cube, it was naturally because Li Jie felt that the blue of the sky best represented space, and the cube best represented humanity's perception of space. So, naturally, that's how he designed it. At this moment, the ability had been designed and manifested, but Li Jie did not immediately integrate the ability seed into his godhead. Since he was demonstrating the result of the ability manifestation, he should also display the form in which the ability could be given to others. In a flash, Li Jie had already designed, manifested, and engraved a new ability within his godhead. The ability to seal objects in the form of a drawing. Why was the speed of design and manifestation so fast? That's because Li Jie's design and manifestation process inherently doesn't take much time. As long as the design result is confirmed, Li Jie can manifest what he designed in a single thought. What he was doing now was merely deliberately slowing down the process so the professor and the others could clearly see it. Li Jie used the versatile ability he had previously manifested at home, telekinesis, to pull a card-sized piece of white paper from his pocket. This was a card he had cut from ordinary drawing paper and casually kept on his person. Li Jie used telekinesis to levitate the card above his outstretched hands. Seeing the blank card suddenly float in front of Li Jie, the professor and the others were startled. But they immediately thought of Li Jie's abilities. Since he could design and materialize any ability, it wasn't surprising that he would materialize a convenient, catch-all ability like telekinesis for himself. However, they were still confused as to why Li Jie took out a blank card. Couldn't the ability he designed and materialized be directly granted to himself? Li Jie didn't explain their confusion, merely speeding up his movements. The floating blank card moved above the materialized ability light orb, slowly descending flatly toward the orb. The moment the card touched the light orb, Li Jie silently activated the sealing ability he had just materialized. The halo emitted by the light orb gradually disappeared, and the card dropped directly into Li Jie's hand. The professor and the others focused their gaze on the card in Li Jie's hand, immediately noticing a difference. The previously blank card now had a picture on it, and some text underneath, appearing without them noticing. They were familiar with the picture. It was the translucent blue cube, emitting a faint halo, that had been suspended inside the ability light orb in Li Jie's hand. Now, this cube was vividly displayed on the card. Below the card, a brief introduction was written in text. Create space, bind soul. The more energy consumed, the larger the space created. Looking at the card in Li Ji's hand, the professor and the others seemed to realize something. Li Jie, this card, could it be? Cyclops asked directly. After all, Li Jie was about to solve his problem. It's exactly as you suspect. I specifically designed these cards to grant the abilities or other items I designed to others. Furthermore, don't you think this makes it easier for me to carry around large quantities of the things I design and materialize? The professor and the others were speechless. He had specifically designed an ability just to conveniently store his creations. Sure enough, the ability to freely design and materialize things was like cheating, it was practically omnipotence to a certain extent. These cards don't just visually introduce what I've designed, they are also very easy to use. Anyone other than me who wants to obtain the item on the card only needs to drip a drop of their own blood to bind it to the item I sealed within the card. If I seal enough energy within it, the recipient can directly achieve the strength I designed. But if I don't seal much energy onto the card, the recipient will have to find a way to acquire enough energy suitable for the item on the card themselves. Li Ji's introduction left everyone present deeply shaken. This small card actually possessed so many functions. Ability description, ability storage, energy allocation, blood binding ownership. Li Ji's method for storing his creations was truly unexpected. However, this type of card also aroused the professor's concern. These cards not only provided a convenient way for Li Jie to store his creations, but they also gave his designs physical form. And once Li Ji's designs had physical form, they could potentially fall into the hands of ambitious individuals. This naturally made him feel worried. Moreover, Li Ji's actions made him suspect that Li Jie might have long intended to spread his designs everywhere. As a lover of peace, he did not wish to see such events, which were destined to cause chaos, come to pass. He originally wanted to have a serious talk with Li Jie immediately. But looking at the X-Men's expressions of amazement, and seeing Li Ji's youthful face and proud demeanor, he gave up the idea of persuading him. An outstanding young genius would not easily abandon his own ideas. He could only rely on time to slowly change Li Ji's mind. Li Jie was unaware of the professor's thoughts, he was busy showing his card to the X-Men. Even if he knew the professor's thoughts, he would just smile. An idea he had possessed since his previous life wouldn't be easily changed. Since the demonstration is over, hurry up and create your storage space. I'm still looking forward to seeing how you solve my problem. After seeing Li Ji's card, Cyclops was firmly convinced that he could solve his problem. After all, if he could design such an exquisite card, designing an ability that allowed his eyes to turn on and off freely should be a minor issue. Thinking of this, Cyclops unconsciously felt a little anticipation. Alright. My space should indeed have been created long ago. Li Jie was referring to the dimensional space within his godhead. After all, he had initially designed the condensed rule of dimension within the godhead, that grass block inside the godhead. Now, all that was missing was a space to turn the rules he designed from virtual into reality. After all, no matter how powerful a rule was, it needed a place to be utilized. With a thought from Li Jie, everything on the card slowly dissipated, and threads of light interwoven above the card. The original light orb, with the translucent blue cube emitting a halo suspended in its center, reappeared before everyone. Before they could react, the light orb plunged directly into Li Ji's glabella. A blue cube pattern immediately imprinted itself on Li Ji's glabella, disappearing beneath the skin of his brow shortly after. Guided by Li Ji's will, this space ability light orb entered his soul, slowly integrating into the godhead located at the center of his soul. Without incident, the light orb merged directly with the godhead, and a green block and a blue block overlapped. Just as Li Jie thought the condensed rule would smoothly integrate into the space ability block, allowing him to immediately establish a Li Jie version of Minecraft. An unexpected situation occurred. In the sight of the professor and the others, Li Jie had originally worn a confident smile. After the light orb submerged into his glabella, his eyes soon became unfocused. He only managed to clutch the red stone tightly in his hand before falling straight backward. Wolverine, reacting the fastest, leapt to Li Ji's side and stabilized his body with one arm. The kid seems to have lost consciousness. Didn't he say he could completely control his abilities? Wolverine quickly checked Li Ji's body, and after confirming his condition, couldn't help but complain. Logan. Is he alright? Professor, quickly check, what exactly is happening to Li Ji now? Could his ability have gone out of control? The X-Men quickly reacted, all extremely worried about Li Ji's condition. Jean, Aurora, Scott, don't rush. Let me take a good look at Li Ji's situation. Jean, push me over. The professor first calmed them down, and with Phoenix's help, quickly moved next to Li Ji, who Wolverine had laid flat on the ground. He didn't worry whether his psychic energy would be absorbed by Li Ji's energy absorption ability. The professor directly probed Li Ji's head with his mind. What surprised him was that this time, the probing was not blocked by Li Ji's ability, and he successfully delved his mind deep into Li Ji's consciousness. Inside Li Ji's consciousness, the professor didn't see anything familiar, no memory fragments, no impressive scenes. He only saw absolute nothingness, empty and chaotic, like the absolute silence of the universe's beginning, blank yet profound. It was the first time the professor had seen such a barren mental space, even his face in the outside, real world showed a surprised expression. But now was not the time to investigate these things. The professor increased the output of his psychic energy, expanded the range of his mind probe, and searched inch by inch within Li Ji's consciousness for Li Ji's conscious body, or rather, his soul. Finally, after the professor's tireless efforts, he found Li Ji floating in the center of the conscious space. But at this moment, he stopped his attempt to probe further. A rare look of confusion appeared on his face, he didn't know what he should do, unsure of what he had just seen. The X-Men, who had been waiting anxiously, immediately began asking questions when they saw the professor lower the finger he had placed on his temple. Professor, Li Ji isn't seriously hurt, is he? Do you need us to help with anything? Did Li Ji's soul suffer a shock when the space was being opened? That's right. Didn't Li Ji say that the ability he designed would be bound to a person's soul? If that's the case, won't things be troublesome? Neither the soul nor space are simple things, and we can't do anything. The professor did not answer the X-Men's questions. The scene he witnessed in Li Ji's consciousness left him stunned for a long time. The X-Men, unable to get a reply from the professor, finally noticed that something was wrong with him. Professor, are you alright? What exactly did you see? As a mutant who also possesses psychic probing abilities, Phoenix quickly realized that the professor must have seen something incredible. Jean, you won't believe what I saw inside Li Ji's conscious space. I felt like I saw a god. The professor clearly hadn't recovered from the shock he felt moments ago. His tone of voice was filled with deep shock. A god? What kind of god? Does this have anything to do with Li Ji fainting? Storm was very confused. How could Li Ji fainting be related to a god? Professor, can you be clearer? All we want to know right now is what exactly happened to Li Ji. Cyclops pressed again about Li Ji's condition. He didn't want anything bad to happen to Li Ji. Wolverine, meanwhile, just frowned deeply, staring intently at the professor's face. Agitated, he subconsciously wanted to pull out another cigar and light it, but seeing Li Ji lying on the ground, he ultimately just held the cigar between his lips without lighting it. Facing Cyclops's persistent questioning, the professor finally suppressed some of the shock in his heart. Oh, Scott, I don't think there's anything wrong with Li Ji. He should just be undergoing a transformation right now, a transformation from man to God. The X-Men simply couldn't believe their ears. They suspected they had misheard. Could becoming a god be such an easy thing? Right before their eyes, Li Ji had only added an ability to create a storage space for himself. Was the requirement for becoming a god simply having a storage space? The professor naturally knew what he was talking about. If he hadn't seen that scene in Li Ji's conscious space, even he wouldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. You absolutely won't guess what I saw inside Li Ji's conscious space. I saw a giant, who was Li Ji, opening up a world. It turned out that just moments ago, when the professor found Li Ji, he happened to witness Li Ji opening up a dimensional space. At that time, Li Ji was using his mind to control the grass block to merge into the blue block. Everything had been going smoothly, but the moment they completely merged, the rules inscribed within the grass block began to become increasingly active. It was as if a pack of hungry beasts had spotted a helpless lamb and were frantically trying to pounce on it. As the master of the godhead, he was naturally affected when something like this happened. Thus, Li Ji's consciousness was pulled into the conscious space. Originally, Li Jie was a bit lost, but looking at the rules he had inscribed within the grass block and thinking about the space opening ability, a formula instantly popped up in his mind: rules plus opened space equals world. With this, Li Jie immediately understood the reason. That's right. What he wanted to do was open up a small dimensional space, not just a simple storage space. When rules merge into this dimensional space, and the rules can rely on the dimensional space to officially start running. The two were like dry wood meeting a fierce fire, or a fuse being lit on a bomb, they instantly became agitated. At this time, someone was needed to guide it. Otherwise, if it burned in the wrong place or exploded in the wrong direction, fixing it later would be troublesome. Having figured this out, Li Jie immediately knew what he had to do. Naturally, it was to act as Pangu, for once, leading the creation of a dimensional world. Yes, a world. Although he didn't intend to open up a massive space all at once, what do you call a space that possesses rules if not a world? Even the smallest world is still a world. The grass block had completely disappeared, and the blue block representing the space opening ability was fluctuating violently. Without time to explain the situation to the professor and the others, Li Jie retracted most of his consciousness, tightened his grip on the red stone in his hand, maintained the consciousness needed to absorb the energy within the red stone, and relinquished control over his physical body. He wasn't worried about his enhanced body being harmed, he trusted the character of the professor and the others. Then, Li Jie drew the godhead out from his soul, and conversely, let his soul enter the godhead. Treating the godhead as chaos, himself as Pangu, and the blue space opening ability block as the egg shell, he stood inside the block. Following Li Ji's guidance, changes continuously occurred inside the blue block. Under Li Ji's feet, a phantom green, flat ground spread out in all directions from his center, occasionally punctuated by square trees springing up from the earth. On the ground, familiar yet strange block-shaped animals like pigs, cows, sheep, and chickens occasionally appeared, grazing on the block-shaped flowers and grass that appeared simultaneously. Above Li Ji's head, a square white sun was also suspended. Clouds piled up from blocks drifted slowly across the blue sky. Beneath the ground, layers of mud and stone, along with various minerals, gradually enriched the thickness of the earth. As Li Jie continuously guided his mind, this world gradually perfected itself. Of course, all of this was a phantom image constructed of energy. After all, the energy inside the red stone was currently insufficient for Li Jie to turn all these things from illusion into reality. He could only slowly fill them with energy later. As the saying goes, appearance is born from the heart. Inside Li Ji's own conscious space, as he was doing this act of creating a world, he unconsciously regarded himself as the towering Pangu, who separated heaven and earth. It was exactly at this moment that the professor came searching, and what he saw was the magnificent mythological scene of Pangu separating heaven and earth and creating all things in the world. He was instantly stunned. Thanks for watching.